நண்பர்களே கேக்குதா? கேக்குது. ஓகே, இன்னைக்கு வந்து என்ன பண்ண போறோம்? வணக்கம் நண்பர்களே. இன்னைக்கு வந்து சும்மா வெட்டியா இருக்கேன், அதனால டைமை வெட்டியா வேஸ்ட் பண்ண வேணாம் அப்படின்னு வந்து பிஜிபிபி படிக்கலாம் அப்படின்னு. பிஜிபி மீன்ஸ் தெரியாதவங்க சொல்றேன். சிஐ இன்டர்ல வந்து டைரக்ட் டாக்ஸேஷன்ல அது ஒரு சாப்டர், முக்கியமான சாப்டர். அதை வந்து இன்னைக்கு யூடியூப் மூலயமா நான் வந்து எப்படி படிக்கிறேன் நீங்க பார்க்கலாம். அதே மாதிரி நானும் வந்து என்னோட டைமை வேஸ்ட் பண்ணாம சும்மா இருந்துப்பேன். ஸோ வீடியோ போட்டதுனால ஒரு ஆப்ளிகேஷன் அந்த மாதிரி ஃபீல் பண்றேன். ஸோ படிக்கிறதுக்கு டெய்லியெல்லாம் இது மாதிரிலாம் ஸ்ட்ரீம் பண்ண மாட்டேன், எனக்கு ஒரு நாள் வரும். அதனால ஓகே, 4 பேர் பார்க்கறாங்களா? அருண் கிருஷ்ணன் எஸ் ப்ரோ. எதுக்கு எஸ் ப்ரோ சொன்னீங்க? ஆடியோ சொன்னீங்களா? ஓகே. அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து யாரு? தனுஷா முடிக்கல, ஆல் தி பெஸ்ட் ப்ரோ. என்ன முடிக்கல? ஒழுங்கா சொன்னீங்கன்னா நல்லா இருக்கும். ஓகே, இப்போ வந்து நம்ம பிஜிபி படிக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிடலாம். என்னோட வீடியோ ஒழுங்கா தெரியுதா? வீடியோ தான் கொஞ்சம் பிரச்சனையா இருக்கும். வீடியோ ஒழுங்கா தெரியும் நம்புறேன். இப்போ வந்து நம்ம ஃபர்ஸ்ட் என்னுடைய இன்னைக்கு என்ன வீடியோ பார்த்து படிக்கணும் அப்படின்றது முக்கியம். ஸோ நான் ஏற்கனவே வந்து வீடியோ வந்து பார்த்து வச்சிட்டேன். எந்த சாரோட வீடியோ பார்க்கணும், யூடியூப் வீடியோ எந்த வீடியோ லெக்சரை பார்க்கணும், அண்ட் எப்படி படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு பிளான் பண்ணிட்டு தான் வந்திருக்கேன். ஸோ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் என்ன வீடியோ அப்படின்னு நான் யூடியூப்ல காட்டுறேன். தேட போறதுல ஏற்கனவே பார்த்து வச்சிட்டேன், இருந்தாலும் வந்து உங்களுக்கு காட்டுறேன் இப்போ என்ன வீடியோ. வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பிஜிபிபி அப்படின்னு போட்டு ஏஎன்எம் சார் அப்படி போட்டுடலாம். போட்டிங்கன்னா 2 வீடியோ வரும். 2 மாசத்துக்கு முன்னாடி ஒரு வீடியோ போட்டேன், 3 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ. நெக்ஸ்ட் பாத்தீங்கன்னா 1 வருஷம் முன்னாடி போட்டேன் 4.5 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ. இப்ப நான் என்ன பண்ண போறேன்னா, ஆப்வியஸா அதெல்லாம் அமெண்ட்மெண்ட் வந்திருக்கும், பட் இருந்தாலும் நான் வந்து 4 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ தான் பார்ப்பேன். பிகாஸ் அதுல 2 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ விட இந்த 4 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ கொஞ்சம் நல்லாவே அவர் நடத்திருக்காருன்னு சொல்லலாம். ஸோ இன்னைக்கு வந்து நான் அதை தான் ஃபாலோ பண்ண போறேன். இப்போ வந்து நம்ம அந்த 4.5 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ பார்க்கலாம். அதுக்கு முன்னாடி ஒரே நிமிஷம் நண்பர்களே. லேப்டாப் வேற ஒன்றும் இல்லை, என்னோட வீடியோ தான் வந்து ஒழுங்கா இருக்கான்னு பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கேன். ஒரு நிமிஷம். லைவ் தான் போயிருக்கு போல. லைவ்ல எல்லாமே கரெக்டா இருக்கு. இப்போ வந்து நம்ம வீடியோ பார்க்க ஆரம்பிச்சிடலாம். படிக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிட வேண்டியதுதான். லேப்டாப்போட சைடு சார். ஓகே, ஏன்னா பிகாஸ் வந்து அப்படியே கமெண்ட்ஸ் வந்து லைட் அப்படியே படிக்கிறதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் ஹெல்ப்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கும் லேப்டாப்ல வந்து. நெக்ஸ்ட் வந்து இப்போ புக் எடுக்கணும், டைரக்ட் டாக்ஸேஷன் புக்கு. ஸோ இப்போ வந்து புக்கு தேவை கிடையாது எனக்கு. நான் வந்து நம்ம ஒன்றும் பண்ண போகல, பட் பேரடி வச்சு எடுத்து படிக்க வேண்டியதுதான். ஏன்னா நீங்க கேள்விகள் கேட்கறதா இருந்தா இப்போ கேட்டுருங்க. பிகாஸ் நான் ஒன்ஸ் வீடியோ ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணேன்னா பதில் சொல்ல முடியாத சூழ்நிலைகள் ஆகும்.
Either you are dash or dash. Either you are dash or dash. That's it. This is what section 30 is all about.
நீங்க சிஏ இன்டர் வந்து யாருன்னா படிக்கிறீங்க அப்படின்னா நீங்க எதனா சும்மா உங்க டைம் வேஸ்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாலும் அடசை இது உங்களுடைய பாட்டு எங்க வீட்டாண்ட கோயில் ஒரு பெரிய கோயில் இருக்குடா. கரெக்டா கோயில் பக்கத்துல வீடு இருக்கு. ஸோ 1 மணி நேரத்துக்கு 1 மணி நேரம் இது மாதிரி சவுண்ட் கேக்குதுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். கேக்குதா உங்களுக்கு? பாட்டு பாடு சவுண்ட் கேக்குதா? நைட்டு காலைல 5 மணிக்கு ஆரம்பிச்சு நைட்டு 10 மணி வரைக்கும் ஓடுது. சரி 1 மணி நேரத்துக்கு 1 மணி நேரம் இப்படி வந்து வரும் வந்து. சரி நீங்க யாருன்னா வந்து இன்டர்ல சும்மா இருக்கீங்க படிக்கிறீங்க சும்மா இருக்கீங்கன்னா வாங்க நம்ம 2 பேரும் சேர்ந்து படிக்கலாம். நீங்க ஒண்ணுமே பண்ணலாம். போன்ல பாக்குறீங்களாலும் சரி லேப்டாப்ல பாக்குறீங்களாலும் சரி நான் வந்து அப்படிதான் பார்க்க போறேன். ஸோ உங்களுக்கு வந்து கம்ஃபர்டபுளா இருந்தா நீங்களும் நம்ம 2 பேரும் சேர்ந்து படிக்கலாம் த்ரூ ஃபோன். நம்ம வந்து நல்ல ஒரு விஷயம். ஸோ ஓகே ஐயா விக்னேஷ் ட்ரெயின் சொல்லியிருக்காரு. ஏன் ப்ரோ அப்படி சொல்றீங்க? ட்ரெயினா ஓ கம்ப்ளீட்டிங் பிஜிபி 1 சொல்றீங்களா? எனக்கு இது வந்து நான் இப்போதான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் வந்து பிஜிபி படிக்க போறது இல்லை. எனக்கு ஏற்கனவே கொஞ்சம் தெரியும். ஸோ வந்து ஒரு 30% ஆஃப் பிஜிபி அதாவது செக்ஷன் 32 வரைக்கும் தெரியும். டெப்ரிசியேஷன் எப்படி கேல்குலேட் பண்ற வரைக்கும் தெரியும். பட் அதுக்கு மேல ஒன்றும் தெரியாது. ஸோ நான் வந்து பிஜிபி படிக்கிறது வந்து புதுசு கிடையாது மீன்ஸ் ரொம்ப நல்லா படிச்சிருக்கேன். அதான் சொன்ன மாதிரி டெப்ரிசியேஷன் வரைக்கும் படிச்சு வச்சிருக்கேன். ஸோ டெப்ரிசியேஷன் வரைக்கும் எனக்கு அது வந்து பெருசாக தெரியாது. சார் சொல்றாருல செக்ஷன் 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 இது வரையும் தெரியும். இதுக்கு மேலே தெரியாது. டிடக்ஷன்ஸ் வந்து 32 வரைக்கும் தெரியும். Disallowances and Taxation 43 சைஸ் தெரியும். ஸோ இப்போ போய் நம்ம பண்ண வேண்டியதுதான். ஸ்ரீஷ் வியாஸ் இருங்க இதுல இருக்காங்க. ஸ்ரீஷ் வியாஸ் யூடியூப் சேனல் ஃபார் இன்கம் டேக்ஸ். ஓகே லெட்ஸ் ட்ரை அவர் சொல்ற மாதிரி பார்க்கலாம். இது ஸ்ரீ வியாஸ் ஸ்ரீஷ் வியாஸ் ஸ்ரீஷ் கரெக்டா ஸ்பெல் பண்ணா தெரியல. ஷிரீஷா Shirish Vyas. Shirish, okay. Anjay Shirish Vyas income tax. எஸ் இதுக்கு முன்னாடி நான் பார்த்துருக்கு. பட் எனக்கு பேர் தெரியாது. இருந்தாலும் நான் இப்போ உங்களோட சஜஷனுக்கு ரொம்ப நன்றி. பட் இருந்தாலும் நான் வந்து ப்ரோ டாக்ஸ் ஐடி டிடி ஐடிடி இங்கிலீஷ் ஒய்டி சொல்லுங்க தலைவரே. நானே வந்து நியூ பிகினர் தான். ஸோ நான் வந்து எந்த இங்கிலீஷ் நான் சொல்லுவேன் இது வரைக்கும் நான் பார்த்த வரைக்கும் சொல்லணும்னா ஒரு 4 பேருக்கு பார்த்துருக்கேன். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா பன்வர் பரோனா சார், நெக்ஸ்ட் வந்து ஏஎன்எம் சார், 3வது பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ராமேஷா சார், அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து இன்னும் ஒருத்தர் இருப்பார். அவர் பேர் ராஜத் மோகான்னு நினைக்கிற பேர் ராஜத் மோகான் தான் நினைக்கிறேன். ஸோ இந்த 4 பேர்கிட்ட தான் வந்து நான் இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் படிச்சுட்டு இருக்கேன். RCB 1 ப்ரோ பார்த்தீங்களா? பார்த்தேன் ப்ரோ. அந்த 11 பேர் செத்தாங்க. அதை பார்த்தீங்களா? ஐ மீன் நேற்று 11 பேர் செத்தாங்க ஸ்டாம்பேட்ல ஸ்கூட்டர் ரேசர்ல. அவ்வளோதான். நான் வந்து இதுக்கு மேலே டைம் வேஸ்ட் பண்ண விரும்பல. டேரக்டா போய் படிக்க ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம். படிக்க ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம். நம்ம பிஜிபி படிக்க ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம். தட்ஸ் இட். மியூட் பண்ணிடுறேன். நீங்க எதனா கமெண்ட் போடுறதுனா போடுங்க. பார்த்தா வந்து கண்டிப்பா ரிப்ளை படிக்கலாம். நான் ஐயோ நான் ஹெட்செட்லாம் போட்டுன்னு படிக்கிறான். இது பார்த்தீங்களா ரொம்ப பெருசா நினைக்காதீங்க. இது ஒரு கீஞ்சி ஹெட்செட்டு. இதுதான் நான் ரொம்ப கம்ஃபர்டபுளா ஃபீல் பண்றேன். வேற என்ன யூஸ் பண்ணலாம், பட் இயர்ஃபோன்ஸ் கூட யூஸ் பண்ணலாம். எங்க வீட்டில் இயர்ஃபோன்ஸ் இந்த பிஞ்சு ஹெட்ஃபோன் தான் இருக்கு. ஸோ இதை வச்சு தான் படிக்கணும். நம்ம படிக்கலாம். காமெடியா இருக்கும், பரவாயில்ல. ஸோ லெட்ஸ் ஸ்டடி.
Section 28 is a charging section. Section 28 is a charging section. Section 29 is the computational section. Section 30, expenditure relating to building. Section 31, expenditure relating to plant, machinery and furniture. Section 32 is depreciation. Section 33AB is tea, coffee or rubber. Section 35, expenditure on scientific research. Section 35AD, specified business. 35D, preliminary expenses. 35DDA, VRS. 35E, extraction of mineral oil. 36, other deduction. 37, general deduction. 38, asset used for both business and personal. So, we are going to talk about the chapter profits and gains of business or profession. How we are going to study this chapter, big chapter? We are going to classify the chapter into 5 categories. Number 1, deduction. Number 2, disallowance. Number 3, procedural aspects. Number 4, presumptive taxation. And number 5, 43 series. In the deduction, this many sections are there. Once we are thorough with this many section, we can say that we have done with the deduction part. The number 1 is section 28, charging section. Section 29 is the computational section. You know, this is the biggest head of income out of all the heads of income. So how to compute the PGBP is explained in section 29, that is computational section. Section 30, expenditure relating to building. That means in order to do a business, where will you do the business? Will you do the business in road? No. You should have a building. So you may incur expenditure relating to building. That expenditure can be debited to P&L account as per section 30. Inside that building, if it is plain, is it possible to manufacture the goods? No. So inside that building, you need plant and machinery. So expenditure relating to plant and machinery is covered under section 30. But so now you are having building. Now you are having plant and machinery, my dear lovable students. So you can claim depreciation under section 32. This is the one section. So section 28 is the charging section. 29 is the computation section. 30 expenditure relating to building. Section 31 expenditure relating to plant, machinery and furniture. And 32 is depreciation. Now if you are a businessman who are engaged in tea, coffee or rubber, you are entitled to claim deduction under section 32, 33AB, 33AB. And if you are engaged in scientific research, you are entitled to claim deduction under section 35. And 35AD is talking about specified business. Specified business, there are 14 specified business are there. If you are having the courage to start those 14 specified business, then 100% of the capital expenditure will be allowed as deduction in the first year itself. 35D is preliminary expenses. Before starting a business, we may incur preliminary expenses. How to debit that preliminary expenses in the P&L account is what explained in section 35D. 35DDA, VRS. And 35E is extraction of mineral oil. And 36 is other deduction. 37 general deduction. And 38 asset use for both business and personal. So if you come to the next part, that is disallowance part. There are 3 disallowance are there in PGBP. Section 37, subsection 2B. 40 small a series and 40 big a series. 40 a series and 43B. That means, my dear lovable students, what section 37, subsection 2B is saying that as a businessman, if you are debiting any advertisement in the brochure or souvenir of the political party, then that amount should be added back. Because is it a business expenditure? No, sir. Since it is not a business expenditure, any advertisement in the souvenir of the political party, my dear lovable students, should not be debited to P&L account. And certain other items should not be debited to P&L as per 40 small a series and 40 big a series and 43B deduction on actual payment basis. So, my dear lovable students, this is how we have to understand PGBP classified into P&L. We have to draw the P&L. In the P&L, by sales will be there. Correct? Now, to expenses, there are certain expenses which can be debited to P&L account. There are certain expenses which cannot be debited to P&L account, to expenses allowed and to expenses not allowed. So the expenses which are allowed, my dear lovable students, are called as deductions. The expenses which are not allowed, that is called as disallowance. Because of debiting those items in the P&L account, what will happen to the net profit? The net profit reduces. The net profit reduces, my dear lovable students. So what the chapter PGBP is saying that what and all items you can debit to P&L account is what? Disallowance. What and all items you cannot debit to P&L account is called as what? Allowance, disallowance. So anything can be debited to P&L, allowances. Anything cannot be debited to P&L because of you debiting that item in the P&L account, because of that net profit would have been reduced. Should be added back. That's what disallowance. Are you following what I'm saying till now? Put a yes, no, then we proceed. Yes, sir. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Because I'm just confirming what I'm talking is receiving to you or not. Super, sir. So how we are going to discuss this chapter is chapter PGBP I have classified into 5 categories. Number 1, deduction. Number 2, disallowance. What do you mean by deduction? Sir, what and all item that can be debited to P&L account is called as deduction. Then number 2, what and all item that cannot be debited to P&L account is called as disallowance. As a businessman, as a professional, you have to maintain books of accounts. That is covered under procedural aspects. That is section 44A, compulsory maintenance of books of accounts, and 44AB, compulsory tax audit. Compulsory tax audit. Then you are having section 41, that is due income. So who and all have to maintain the books of accounts are covered under section 44A, and who and all have to compulsory do tax audit is covered under section 44AB. And my dear lovable students, section 41 is due income. Due income is covered in 41. So what is the structure of this chapter? Chapter PGBP classified into 5 categories. Number 1, deduction. Number 2, disallowance. Number 3, procedural aspects. Number 4, presumptive taxation. And number 5, 43 series. What is deduction means? What and all item that can be debited to P&L account is called as deduction. What and all item you should not debit to P&L account is called as disallowance. So if I am a businessman or profession, I have to maintain certain books of accounts. That is called as, sir, procedural aspects. Sir, every businessman may not be Tata or Birla. There may be small businessman. They may not be interested to maintain books of accounts. They may not be interested to do the tax audit. They may not be interested to do the, sir, big procedures. So my dear lovable students, what they will do, you know, they want a simple route. That is called as presumptive taxation. They want presumptive taxation. And we are having various sections which are covered under 43. That is called as 43 series. So this is the structure of that. This is how we are going to learn the PGBP. PGBP classified into 5 categories. Number 1, deduction, disallowance, procedural aspects, presumptive taxation, and 43 series. In that disallowance, 3 disallowance are there. 37 subsection 2B, any expenditure relating to advertisement debited to P&L account should be added back. 40A series classified into 2 categories, 40 small a series and 40 big a series. And 43B, deduction on actual payment basis. 40 smallest series again classified in three categories: payment to non-resident, payment to resident, taxes and fees. Payment to non-resident, payment to resident, taxes and fees. 40 biggest series we are having 4 sections: 40A subsection 2, 40A subsection 3, 40A subsection 7, 40A subsection 9. 40A subsection 2 is related party transaction. 40A subsection 3 is cash payment exceeding 10,000 or 35,000 as the case may be. 40A subsection 7 is provision for gratuity, and 40A subsection 9 is contribution to unrecognized fund. 44A compulsory maintenance of books of accounts. 44AB compulsory tax audit, and 41 is the deemed profit, deemed income we are having. And we are having 3 presumptive taxation section: 44AD, 44ADA, 44AE. 44AD presumptive taxation for businessman, 44ADA presumptive taxation for notified professional, and 44AE plying, hiring or leasing of goods carriage. Plying, hiring or leasing of goods carriage. So we are going to start in depth of PGBP. What is section 28? Charging section. You know we are having 5 heads of income. Salary is there, house property is there, PGBP is there, capital gain is there, and IFRS is there. What are the income to be taxed under each head of income is what the charging section is all about. If it is salary, section 15 is the charging section. If it is house property, 22 is the charging section. If it is PGBP, 28 is the charging section. And if it is capital gain, 45 is the charging section. And if it is IFRS, 56 is the charging section. So section 28 lists down what are the income to be taxed under the head PGBP. So what is the role of charging section? It says that what are the income to be taxed under that particular head of income. So section 28 clause 1 is saying that PGBP at any time during the previous year, any profits and gains of business or profession which will be taxable under the PGBP. Then number 2, section 28 clause 2, compensation of termination or modification of a contract. You enter into a contract, you have terminated that contract. From that termination, you are getting some revenue, then that should be taxable under PGBP. Then 28 clause 3 is income from any trade, professional or similar services to its members. I am a trade, I am a professional or similar association, I am providing some services to the members, then my income should be taxable under 28 clause 3. What 28 clause 3A is saying that profit on sale of import entitlement license. For example, I am an importer or exporter, I am doing import and export. So by selling that license, I am getting some income. So my dear level students, that income should be taxable under the head PGBP because the import license is related to PGBP. Section 28 clause 3B, cash compensatory support for export under government scheme. Because of any government scheme, I'm getting a cash compensation, then that will be taxable under the PGBP. Duty drawback against export. Because of I'm exporting, I'm getting duty drawback under customs, that should be taxable under PGBP. 28 clause 3D, profit on transfer of duty entitlement passport scheme should be taxable under the PGBP. 28 clause 3E, profit on transfer of duty free replenishment certificate should be taxable. That means all the 3 clauses, 3 series clauses are related to import and export. Regarding import and export, if you are getting anything, should be taxable under the profits and gains of business or. And then to the next clause, 28 clause 4. Any gift or benefit or perquisite arising due to any business or profession. I am engaged in business or profession. Because of myself engaged in business or profession, I am getting a gift or benefit or perquisite, my dear students. Then that gift or benefit or perquisite should be taxable under the head PGBP. Sir, I am a partner in the partnership firm. From that partnership firm, I am getting interest, salary, bonus, commission or remuneration arising to a partner in the partnership firm. Then that interest, salary, bonus, commission, remuneration should be taxable under the head PGBP. Sir, I got non-compete fee. I said that I will not compete with anyone. For that, I get a non-compete fee. That non-compete fee should be taxable under profits and gains of business or. As for 28 clause 6, sum received under the Keyman insurance policy. You have taken in Keyman insurance, and from that Keyman insurance, you are getting any policy receipt, then that should be taxable under the head profits and gains of business or profession. Now, 28 clause 6A, fair market value of inventory on the date of conversion into capital asset. You are having a stock in trade. That stock in trade is converted into capital asset. If we study the chapter capital gain, we are having 45 subsection 2. There we are converting the capital asset into stock in trade. Then provisions of 45 subsection 2 will be applicable. Whereas if you are having in stock in trade and that stock in trade is converted into capital asset, then provisions of 28 clause 6A will be applicable. So that is the ulta of 45 subsection 2. 28 clause 7, any sum received under 35 AD asset is demolished, destroyed, discarded or transferred, then that will be taxable under PGBP. So the one-line summary of the entire discussion is, my dear level students, what and all income to be taxed under PGBP is covered under section 28. So 28 is the charging section. So we are done with section 28. I'm moving into section 29. That is computational section. How to compute the PGBP is what our next discussion. That is the hero, my dear level students. Are you clear with section 28? Respond to me. Yes, sir. Super, sir. So section 28 is the charging section, which talks about what and all income to be taxed under the head profits and gains of business or profession. I will discuss section 29 like this. This is the format I'm going to use. This is a very easiest and brilliant format of discussing profits and gains of business or profession. Profits and gains of business or profession. Yes, just listen. You are having a building, you'll be incurring various expenses to building. So to expenses relating to building can be debited to P&L account as per section 30. So what section 30 is saying? Expenditure relating to building. What and all the allowed expenditure, partly for any expenditure relating to building, if that building has been used for business or profession, can be debited to P&L account. My dear students, if that building is partly used for business and partly for other than business, only the expenditure attributable to the business can be debited to P&L account. So the proportionate part of expense attributable to business use is allowed. That means I'm having a building. For that I'm paying a rent of 1 lakh. Out of that building, 50% I'm using for business and 50% for personal. So 50,000 should be added back. Right, sir? I'm going to the next one. Sublet it. That means I've taken a building and I'm subletting that. Then the rent paid by the assessee minus rent received from the subtenant should only be allowed as a deduction. For example, 1 lakh rupees I am paying rent to the main person and I have subletted this property. From that I got 40,000 rupees rent. So what is the net expenses for me? Only 60,000 will be allowed as deduction under section 30. Next one, ownership. Assessee. If the assessee is the owner of the premises, for example, I am the owner of the building, then I cannot debit the notional rent to the P&L. Then premises or firm held by any of the partners, then no notional rent is allowed as deduction. And rent payable to partner to the extent reasonable and not excessive. For example, I am owning the building, then notional rent should not be debited to P&L. But if the rent is owned to be one of the partner, partnership firm can pay rent to that partner, but it should not exceed the market price. Then repair, only revenue repair relating to that building is allowed. That means revenue repair relating to building can be debited to. and other expenditure relating to property like land revenue, local taxes, municipal tax, insurance can be debited to what account? Then repair of the building. Assessee should be the dash of the building. So in order to debit repair in the P&L account, I should be the owner of the building. Assessee's tenant was undertaken to bear the dash of repair. If I am a tenant, as per the agreement made with students, that can be debited to P&L account. If assessee occupied the premises otherwise as what or what, I am not the tenant, I am not the owner, but I am supposed to what? To bear the repair of the property, then that repair can be debited to what account? This is the summary of section 30. I may be a owner of the building or tenant of the building. Rent is not allowed. If I am an owner, to whom I will pay the rent? To myself, I cannot pay the rent. So notional rent is not allowed. Rates and taxes can be debited to P&L. Insurance can be debited to P&L. Revenue repair can be debited to P&L. And capital repair should be added to the cost of the asset. Hence, it is not allowed. If I am not the owner, if I am the tenant of the property, then rent is allowed. To rates and taxes are allowed. To insurance are allowed. Revenue repair are allowed. Whereas capital repair is not allowed. That means a one-line summary of the entire discussion is how to compute the PGBP is the question. That means section 30 is what we are discussing, right? With regard to section 32, rent. Can the rent debited to P&L? Yes, sir. Provided if you are a tenant. If you are an owner, it is not allowed. Next one. 2. Sir, rates and taxes relating to building is allowed? Yes, sir. Rates and taxes can be debited to P&L. Correct? Whether you are dash or dash. Sir, is the insurance relating to building is allowed? Yes, sir. Whether you are dash or dash. Sir, to revenue repair can be debited to P&L? Yes, sir. Whether you are dash or dash. Sir, to capital repair can be debited to P&L? No, sir. Whether you are dash or dash. That's it. This is what section 30 is all about. With this, we can say that we are done with section 30. Clear, perfectly clear. What is section 28? Charging section. What is section 29? What is computation section? Only the items which are covered under 30 to 38 is debited to P&L. If you are debiting unnecessary item, I will lend back because of disallowance. That's what section 29 is saying. So in that, we have completed one section called section 30. I'm going into section 31. Expenditure relating to plant, machinery, and furniture. So inside that building, I'm having plant, I'm machinery, and I'm having furniture, right? Even that plant, machinery, and furniture, I may be a owner or I may be a tenant. I would have taken the plant or machinery and furniture. I may be owning that or I may be to take for rent. So if I am an owner, rent not allowed because notional rent cannot be debited to P&L account. But insurance on the plant, machinery, and furniture is allowed. Revenue repair is allowed, but capital repair is not allowed. But if that plant, machinery, and furniture, if I have taken on lease or rent, then it is allowed not as per section 30, but as per section 37. But as per section 37. Insurance allowed? Yes. Revenue repair allowed? Yes. But capital repair is not. The deduction allowable under this section only of inner repair, but not arrears of repair for earlier year, even though they may still run for deduction under 37 section 1. So in that repair, only current repair is allowed, not the previous year repair is allowed. Previous year repair can be claimed as a deduction under section 37. My dear lovable students. So what is the summary, my dear lovable students? And what is deduction under section 31? What all can be debited to P&L account? Sir, to rent on what? Plant, machinery, and furniture not allowed. This is allowed as per section what? 37. This is allowed as per section 37. As per section 31, it is not allowed. That means plant, machinery, and furniture, you cannot debit that into the P&L account. As per section 31. But it is allowed as per 37. 2. Insurance. Can you debit insurance? Yes, sir. Sir, 2. Repairs. Can you debit the repairs of those items? Yes, sir. Sir, that repairs should be what repair? Revenue repair. If it is what repair, capital repair should be added back. It will not be allowed as a deduction. This items, insurance, revenue repair, is allowed as a deduction under section what? 31. But if I am taking that plant, machinery and furniture for rent, that rent cannot be debited to P&L account as per section 31, but it can be claimed as deduction under section 37. Clear? Yes, what is section 28? That section lists down what are the income to be taxed under profits and gains of business or profession. What is section 29? How to compute the PGBP income is explained in section 29. What is section 30? Expenditure relating to building. So relating to building, this expenditure can be debited to P&L account. If you are a tenant, rent can be debited to P&L account. And rates and taxes, whoever it may be can be debited. Insurance, whoever it can be debited. Revenue repair, whoever it can be debited. But whoever it may be, capital expenditure is not allowed. What is section 31? Expenditure relating to plant, machinery and furniture. Sir, if you are a tenant, then the rent cannot be debited to P&L. It will not be allowed as deduction. But as per section 37, it will be allowed as a deduction. Right? But insurance and revenue repair can be debited to what account? P&L account as per section 31. But capital repairs will never be allowed as a. That's it, man. I'm coming to the here section 32 depreciation. Are you clear? This one online. Are you clear up to this? Yes. Super. I'm moving into section 32, which is depreciation, which can be explained or discussed in 4 sections, my dear lovable students. 32 subsection 1 class 1, 32 subsection 1 class 2, 32 subsection 1 class 2A, 32 subsection 1 class 3. 32 subsection 1 class 1 is depreciation at SLM for power sector undertaking. If the assessee is a power sector undertaking, there are 2 options, my dear lovable students. Either you can do, sir, calculate the depreciation as per SLM, straight line method or WDV method. So 32 subsection 1 class 1 is saying that, sir, SLM for power sector undertaking. 32 subsection 1 class 2 is WDV method. It is applicable for both power sector undertaking and other than power sector undertaking. And 32 subsection 1 class 2A is additional depreciation. And 32 subsection 1 class 3 is terminal depreciation. We can talk like this. We are having 3 types of depreciation. Number 1, normal depreciation, additional depreciation, and terminal depreciation. Normal depreciation will be allowed as deduction under section 32 subsection 1 class 1 or 32 subsection 1 class 2 as per the income tax rules. Whereas additional depreciation is as per 32 subsection 1 class 2, which is 20% of the. Whereas terminal depreciation is applicable only to the power sector undertaking who adopted any method. SLM method. Now I'm going to talk about normal depreciation. That's my part number 1. In order to claim depreciation under section 32, my dear lovable students, assessee should satisfy 4 conditions. If you are satisfying this 4 conditions, then you can debit depreciation to the P&L account. To the P&L account, you can debit to depreciation. We have debited so many expenditure under section 30, 31. Now we are debiting the depreciation. In order to allow this as a deduction, you should satisfy 4 conditions. Number 1, assessee should be wholly or partly owned by the assessee. So assessee should be the owner of the asset. Asset should be used for the purpose of business or profession. That in the relevant previous year, and asset should form part of eligible class of asset. That means, my dear lovable students, you want depreciation to be debited to P&L account, satisfy 4 conditions. Asset should be owned by the assessee. Asset should be used for the purpose of business or profession. That in the relevant previous year, and asset should form part of eligible class of asset. Whatever the doubt arising, what is eligible class of asset? Eligible class of asset, there are 2 assets are there: tangible assets and intangible assets. What are the rate of depreciation? If it is building, it depends upon the building. Sir, is it residential building? Then only 5% of the depreciation because it is a residential building. You may have a doubt, sir, why are you allowing depreciation for residential building because it has not been used for the purpose of business or profession? My dear lovable student, residential building doesn't mean the house what we are staying. Residential building means the quarters, government quarters will not be there. For that, it is only 5%. General is how much percent? 10%. And for temporary structure, it is 40% because it is temporary structure. Because it is temporary structure, because we have to demolish that as quick as possible, so we have to pay more depreciation. Whereas with regard to machinery and oil, the rate of depreciation is 15%. Whereas for plant or furniture, it is 10%. So for these items, 40% is the rate of depreciation, like aeroplane, big vehicle, air pollution control equipment, like books, computer, windmill. For these items and all, the rate of depreciation available in the income tax act is 40%. Whereas with regard to motor vehicle, you check whether the motor vehicle is used in the business of running them on hire, that is Ola Uber, then it is 30%. Other than those used in the business of running them on hire, other than Ola Uber, then general rate of 15%. Because if that motor vehicle is used for Ola or Uber, more usage will be done. That is why 30% depreciation. Otherwise, 15%. But for intangible asset, all intangible, 25% WDV method. That is whether it is know-how, patent, copyright, trademark, license, franchisee, or any other assets of similar nature, the rate of depreciation will be 25% in media lovable students. These are the general notes we should know with regard to depreciation. EPA, BX, and mobile phones are not computer, hence depreciation at 40% is not eligible. If the question is saying that it is EPA, BX, and mobile phone, then it is not computer, media lovable students, hence higher rate of depreciation will not be. Depreciation is allowed even if the cost cost is less than what? 5,000. Near but if you purchase goods for even 2,000, then also depreciation is allowed. Right. As for 43 subsection 3, plant includes the definition of plant, ship, vehicle, books, scientific apparatus, surgical equipment used for business or profession, but does not include tea bushes, livestock, building, furniture, or water. So there is a definition of plant. It includes ship, vehicle, books, scientific apparatus, and surgical equipment, but it does not include tea bushes, livestock, building, furniture, and fittings. Plant and machinery acquired and put to use between 23/8/2019 to 31/3/2020, it is 45%. It is a special rate during COVID, it is 45%. Now the time has been lost. Other motor vehicle acquired and put to use between this date, it is 30%, 30%. Windmill and equipment installed before this cutoff date, it is 15%, but after this cutoff date, it becomes 40%. For ship, the rate of depreciation is 20%. In Income Tax Act, we are before this cutoff date. Is 15%, but after this cutoff date, it becomes 40%. For ship, the rate of depreciation is 20%. In Income Tax Act, we are following 180 days concept. How many days concept? So after acquiring an asset, if you are put to use an asset for less than 180 days, then half the rate of depreciation. That means if the rate is 15%, you are entitled to pay only 7.5%. Whereas if it is more than 180 days, if you are put to use more than 180 days, then full rate of depreciation may be allowable, students. So we are following 180 days concept for depreciation and 182 days concept for residential status. Clear? So it is mandatory to pay depreciation. That is, depreciation shall be allowed whether or not assessee has clean depreciation computing is what income. When you are preparing the P&L account, if you fail to debit the depreciation, the assessing officer will debit the depreciation and then only he will calculate the total income. Eligibility for depreciation. Depreciation is allowed when asset is actually put to use. Depreciation is not allowed if it is ready for use and not put to actual use. Ready for use depreciation and all accounts, not as per tax. If you want depreciation in tax, that asset should be put to use. Put to use, then allowed. Depreciation in case of lease, irrespective of the accounting treatment prescribed by accounting standard, lessor shall be entitled to depreciation on lease asset, whether the lease is an operating lease or a financial lease. Whether the lease is a, maybe allowable, students, operating lease or finance lease. I think there is some problem with the muting. Everyone please mute. Right. Whether the lease is a, maybe allowable, students, operating lease or finance lease, the lessor is the person entitled to depreciation. Depreciation for standby equipment. For example, I am having one more spare equipment which I have not put to use because our main equipment is going. Whether the depreciation can be claimed. Standby equipment and servicing equipment are to be capitalized. Machinery spares shall be charged to revenue as and when consumed. When such spares can be used only in connection with the item of tangible fixed asset and their use is expected to be irregular, they shall be capitalized. That standby equipment you should not debit it to P&L account. You have to capitalize. But whenever you are using, you can debit that to the P&L account. So if the assets are not used exclusively for business or profession of the assessee, sir, for other purpose as well, depreciation allowed would be a proportionate part of the depreciation allowance to which the assessee would be otherwise entitled. This is provided in section 38. For example, my dear allowable students, yes, my dear allowable students, there is an asset. That asset has been used for both business and personal. Then depreciation you cannot claim 100% because an asset has been used for both business and personal. Then section 38 is saying that only the proportion attributable to the business is allowed, the proportion attributable to the person should be in the back, at the back. So always section 30, what is section 30? Expenditure relating to building. What is section 30? Expenditure relating to, and section 32, depreciation. These three sections are governed by section 38. These sections are governed by section 38. That means if you are using any building or if you are using any plant, machinery or furniture, and the depreciation relating to section 31 and 32 will be governed by section 38. That means you have to always check whether that asset has been used fully for business or partly for business and partly for personal. So section 30 plus 31 plus 32 is equal to section 38, my dear allowable students. For example, I'll give you an example, try to understand this. There's a business place and that business is going extraordinarily brilliant. You are going to add one floor to that business, but that owner is saying that I don't have cash. So you have requested the owner that, sir, don't worry, I'm having a lot of cash. I will construct that floor. Then that will be treated as deemed building. This is an exception to condition that assessee should be there. So we have studied that in order to claim depreciation under section 32, assessee should satisfy four conditions. Assessee should be the owner of the asset. So when assessee is carrying one business or profession in the building, that means in the building we are carrying one business or profession, in respect of which he owns a lease or in the event of occupancy, that we have taken for lease. Any capital expenditures incurred by assessee on the construction of any structure on that building, we have incurred any capital expenditure for any construction by way of renovation or extension or improvement of the building. Then assessee will be treated as owner for such capital expenditure. And even though I am not the owner of that portion, but still for the purpose of income tax act for that expenditure, I can claim it as a deduction under section 32. Now, because of debiting depreciation to P&L, I may end up with a case where unabsorbed business loss will come. How to deal with the set off and carry forward of unabsorbed depreciation is what our discussion. Current year depreciation, for example, sir, this is a very important point. You are debiting depreciation to the P&L account as to depreciation. Sir, because of debiting the depreciation, instead of net profit, you are ending up with by net loss. Are you agree with me? Because of debiting the depreciation to the P&L, you are ending up with, sir, net loss. My dear honorable students, current year depreciation can be set off against current year PGBP and balance under any other head of income except salary. So PGBP can be set off against any head of income. Sir, depreciation loss can be set off against first PGBP, then against any head of income except salary. Depreciation to the extent not set off in the previous year, that is called as anyway, shall be carried forward for set off against PGBP and any head of income except salary. In the current year, if the other income is insufficient, then my dear honorable students, you can carry forward that for the future years, and you can carry forward against any head of income except salary. Unabsorbed depreciation shall be carried forward indefinitely. There is no time for carry forward of unabsorbed depreciation. Even if the business of profession is discontinued, you can still carry forward. Unabsorbed depreciation can be set off even if return not filed within 139 subsection 1 time limit, because there is a section called as section 18 Income Tax Act. If you incur any loss under section 72, 73, 73A, 74 and 74A, and if you want to set off, then you have to file the return of income within due date. But this restriction is not there for 71B, which is loss from house property, and also 32 subsection 2, which is unabsorbed depreciation. So what is the order of set off? Current year depreciation, then brought forward business loss and brought forward depreciation. Because for brought forward business loss, you are having time limit of 8 years, whereas brought forward depreciation, you don't have any time limit. It can be carried forward for unlimited, so you have to keep at the end. This is what our part number 1 may be allowable students. So I'm going to enter the part 2 of the depreciation. Are you comfortable up to this what I'm talking with you? Just give me a assurance that you are able to follow what I'm saying. Yes. Super clarity. Fantastic to the core. Yes. I'm coming. I'm forwarding. Super, sir. Thank you, sir. Part 2, we are going to talk 32 subsection 1 clause to make additional depreciation, which is 20% of actual cost. Sir, in order to claim normal depreciation, assessee has to satisfy 4 conditions. Assessee should be the owner of the asset. Asset should be used for the purpose of business operation that means the level previous year, asset should form part of eligible class of asset. The same way, my dear students, sir, assessee should invest in new plant and machinery acquired and installed. That means in order to claim additional depreciation, you should invest in new plant and machinery. That means for second-hand plant and machinery, you are not entitled for additional depreciation. Assessee is engaged in manufacture or production of any article of thing or generation or distribution of power. That means these two conditions should be satisfied in order to claim 20%, 20%, 2 condition, 20%, 2 condition, 20%, 2 condition. So assessee should invest in new plant and machinery. Assessee should be engaged in the production or manufacture of any article of thing or generation or distribution of power. We have already talked about 180 days concept for normal depreciation. Is the 180 days concept applicable for additional depreciation? Yes. If such asset is acquired and put to use for less than 180 days in that previous year, additional depreciation is restricted to 50% for that previous year, and the balance 50% in the succeeding previous year. Then that the remaining can be taken in the next previous year. Additional depreciation will be allowed to an assessee only if he exercises the option of shifting out of the default tax regime. That means if you are in default tax regime, that is 115 BAC route, you are not entitled to claim additional depreciation. You want additional depreciation, get out of 115 BAC route under 115 BAC subsection 1A. It is not allowable when the assessee pays concessional rate of tax under the default tax regime under section 115 BAC. That means if you are traveling through 115 BAC, you are not entitled to claim additional depreciation. Fantastic. But this section is not regime under section 115 BAC. That means if you are traveling through 115 BAC, you are not entitled to claim additional depreciation. Fantastic. Pays concessional rate of tax under the default tax regime under section 115 BAC. That means if you are traveling through 115 BAC, you are not entitled to claim additional depreciation. Fantastic. But this section is not applicable to these 5 people: ship or aircraft. For ship and aircraft, no additional depreciation. For second-hand plant and machinery, because assessee should be investing in new plant and machinery. So if you are investing in second-hand plant and machinery, you are not entitled for additional depreciation. Plant and machinery installed in office or residence, including guest house. If you are installing in plant and machinery in office, because it is not in factory, not a place where production takes place, you are not entitled for additional depreciation. Office appliances or road transport vehicle. If you are investing in office appliances or road transport vehicle, you are not entitled for additional depreciation. Or any plant and machinery for which the whole cost is allowed as deduction in some other section. For example, section 35, 35 AD. Under this section, if the whole cost has been allowed as deduction, don't come and ask what additional depreciation. My dear allowable students, for that normal depreciation itself is not applicable, then we are asking additional depreciation. These are the general notes. For lift trucks used in the factory is not treated as transport vehicle, because for road transport vehicle you are not entitled for additional depreciation. But if any truck is used only inside the factory, it is not a transport vehicle, so it is eligible for additional depreciation. So in examination they may use for lift truck. Business of printing or printing and publishing amount to manufacture and production of an article or thing, and therefore eligible for additional depreciation. For example, I am a printer. I bought a printing machine because there are 2 conditions should be satisfied. Assessee should engage in invest in new plant and machinery, and assessee should be engaged in the production or manufacture of any article or thing. Even printing also will lead to production. If I am purchasing a Xerox machine, it is entitled for additional depreciation. Additional depreciation is allowed only if assessee follow the WDV method. That means it is not allowed to power sector undertaking if they follow SLM method. For a power sector undertaking, if they follow SLM method, then they are not entitled for additional depreciation. Fantastic to the core. With this part 2 of additional depreciation. So part 1 is normal depreciation, part 2 is additional depreciation. We have done. Are you comfortable with additional depreciation? 32 subsection 1. Yes. Super, sir. Fantastic to the core. I'm proceeding. Thank you. Part 3, which is terminal depreciation. applicable only to power sector undertaking adopting SLM basis. So this is how you have to understand in detail. The assessee can be classified into two categories: who are engaged in the business of generation and distribution of power, and other assessee including power sector undertaking. So if an assessee is engaged in generating power sector undertaking, they are an option to follow either SLM or WDV method for tangible asset, not for intangible asset. Very important point later. If they follow SLM, then individual asset system will be applicable, called as IAS, individual asset system will be applicable. Whereas for other assessee, including power sector undertaking, who are not interested for SLM, for always for them it is WDV method, and for them block system will be applicable. Individual asset system will not be applicable. This is what part number 3. Part number 3 is with regard to the terminal depreciation. I'm moving into part number 4. That is capital gain asset as per section 50. So my dear students, there's a link between section 32 and section 50. Section 32 is talking about depreciation and section 50 is talking about capital gain, how to compute the capital gain in case of a depreciable asset. In case of depreciable asset, first you understand, it will always be short-term capital gain or short-term capital loss. It will never be long-term capital gain or long-term capital loss. It will always be short-term capital gain or short-term capital loss. Usage for asset for business. The word used has to be read in a wide sense so as to include active as well as passive use. Active use also, passive use also covered. However, insurance and repair charge of asset which are owned by the assessee but have not been used for the business during the previous year would not be allowed as a deduction. One example. Now we are going to compare with section 32 and section 50, one of the important part in depreciation. Section 32 is depreciation, section 50 is computation of capital gain in case of depreciable asset. Computation of capital gain in case of depreciable asset. What section 50 is saying that I will tell you, I will just give you an example, just go through this. Understand this, that's more than enough. I am having opening WDV, my dear lovable students, which comprises of 50 lakh. Add additions during the year. I have added, my dear lovable students, a 10 lakh worth rupees asset. So the subtotal comes to 60 lakh, 50 lakhs plus 10 lakh, 60 lakh. Less sales during the year. During the year I have sold something. For example, I sold for option 1 is 40 lakh. So I have to get the amount eligible for depreciation. Amount eligible for depreciation. So 60 lakhs minus 40 lakh, it should be how much lakh? 20 lakh. So whether section 32 or 50 comparison will be there, 32 or 50, I can't say anything because I have to see the number of assets. This 50 lakhs comprises of 10 assets. I purchased one asset, totally 11 assets were there. Out of 11 assets, I sold all the 11 assets. Then, sir, value is there, but asset is not there. In order to claim depreciation under section 32, my dear lovable students, value should be there and also asset should be there. If asset is there, value is not there, value is there, asset is not there, I cannot claim depreciation under section 32. So in two circumstances, section 50 will be applicable. Section 50 will be applicable only in two circumstances. All the remaining circumstances, section 32 will be applicable. When all the assets are transferred, that means in this block, for example, 11 assets were there. If you are transferring all the 11 assets, there is no question of providing depreciation at all. Then section 50 will be applicable. For a consideration less than the block value, then it is a loss, short-term capital loss. Just you think here, the 11 asset cost comes to 60 lakh, but all the 11 assets you are sold for 40 lakh. So that means 60 lakh worth rupees asset has been sold for 40 lakh. That is a short-term capital loss of 20 lakh. Or for a consideration more than the block value, then it is a short-term capital gain. My dear lovable students, short-term capital gain. So, but if you are selling one or some of the asset has been sold more than the value of the block, I am having totally 11 assets in the block. I sold only 5 assets out of 11 assets, but the sale price of that 5 assets comes to 80 lakh. So it exceeds the value, block value, then maybe a lot of students short-term capital gain. So section 50 will be applicable in two circumstances. Number one, all the assets in the block has been sold, then section 50. Or some of the assets in the block has been sold for more than the block value, then also section 50 will be applicable. These are the notes. If assets acquired during the current previous year and not put to use, then depreciation shall not be allowed for such asset, but that asset should be added to the block of the asset. Very important note. That means if you are acquiring an asset and if you have not put to use that asset, then for that asset, depreciation will not be provided, but it should be added to the block of the asset. Number two, actual sale price of the asset should be reduced and not the fair market value of the asset. So when you are selling the asset, you have to reduce the actual selling price, not the fair market value should be reduced. If the assessee transfer building, then the actual sale price shall be reduced and not stamp duty value. If the assessee sold the building from the block, you have to reduce the actual selling price, not the end duty value. However, section 50 attacks, then stamp duty value shall be considered for computation of capital gain. But for the purpose of computation of capital gain, you have to take the stamp duty value, that is for the purpose of capital gain. Money payable means sale price or insurance compensation in respect of assets sold, discarded, demolished, or destroyed during the previous year, and the amount of scrap value. This is what you have to reduce. This is part number, sir, 4 of depreciation. I think still there are some disturbance. Would you please kindly mute the mics? Then it will be very easy for the remaining two. Here, what I'm saying. I'm going into part number 5 with regard to 43 subsections. Which we are going to learn about WDV, how to compute the return on value. You have to take the WDV of the block of asset in the immediately preceding previous year, the last year's WDV. From that, reduce the depreciation actually allowed in the immediately preceding previous year. You will get the WDV of the block at the beginning of the previous year. That means current year's opening is the last year's WDV. From that, reduce the depreciation actually allowed in the immediately preceding previous year. You will get the WDV of the block at the beginning of the previous year. That means current year's opening will get. To that, add actual cost of asset acquired, less money payable. Like money payable in the sense means assets sold, discarded, demolished, or destroyed, less slum sale, which is as per section 50B. Then you will automatically get the WDV of the block for the assessment year, media level students. This is how you have to calculate the closing WDV as per section 43B. In case of lease, depreciation is always claimed by the lessor, whether it is financial lease or operating lease. This we already said once. In case of hire purchase agreement, gets the ownership only after payment of last installment, but you can claim depreciation from beginning, assuming assessee is the owner from the beginning. In case of hire purchase transaction, the hire vendor, the person was take the asset for hire purchase can claim depreciation as if he is the owner. Depreciation on asset particularly owned by assessee, partially owned by the assessee, shall be allowed to him to the extent on his share of asset. For example, there is one asset, that asset is owned by A, B, C equally, then for example D also equally, then everyone can claim 25% of the depreciation. In case of standby machinery and emergency spares, depreciation shall be allowed even if they are ready for use and not put to use. So if you are having any standby equipment, even though it has been used, not used, still depreciation is allowed in my dear laboratory students. Now I'm moving into part 6 of the depreciation, which is section 32. Taxation of grant or subsidy from government. Sometimes AS12 you would have discussed, we would have got some grant from the government. So it has to reduce the cost of the asset. Only after booking the grant or subsidy, you have to claim the depreciation under section 32. Any subsidy, grant, cash incentive, duty drawback, waiver, etc. by central or state government or any authority or body other than the foreign exclamation term shall be treated as income as per section 224 plus something. If the subsidy received is for acquiring an asset, then it shall be deducted from the actual cost of the asset. If the grant is relating to an asset, you have to reduce that from the cost of the asset. Only on the remaining cost, my dear students, you have to claim the depreciation. Or any other subsidy, waiver of known government grant from government, any authority body will be taxable under the PGBP. Whatever grant you are getting from the government, first it has to be taxed under PGBP. Any other subsidy. Any subsidy grant received by either trust or institution established by central government or state government as corpus fund from central government shall not be treated as income. If it is corpus fund, it will not be treated as income. If the loan taken for acquisition of asset is waived, then the amount waived shall be reduced from the actual cost of the asset. Sometimes you have taken a loan, but that loan has been waived by the bank, then that waiver should not be treated as remission or cessation of trading liability as per section 41 subsection 1. It should be reduced from the cost of the asset. Above provision not applicable on LPG subsidy or any other subsidy which is for the welfare of the individual. If we are getting LPG subsidy, then that item will not be treated as income. It is exempted from government. This is what part number 6 of depreciation is all about. So we have talked about what are the items we have talked in part number 1. We have talked about, my dear laboratory students, normal depreciation, how to deal with the normal depreciation. We have talked. In part number 2, we have talked about how to deal with the additional depreciation. In part number 3, we have talked about the terminal depreciation. 3 types of depreciation we have talked. In part number 4, we have talked about capital gain in case of depreciation asset. In case of depreciation asset, always short-term capital gain, fantastic to report. In part number 5, we have talked about how to compute the closing WDV. In part number 6, we have talked about how to tax the grant or subsidy from the government. Now we are going to talk about 43 subsection 1 actual cost in certain cases. Because if you see the format of 43 subsection 6, this is the format of 43 subsection 6. WDV of the block of asset in the immediately preceding previous year. The less the depreciation actually allowed in the immediately preceding previous year, you will get the WDV of the block at the beginning of the previous year. And what cost? Actual cost. What is this term? Actual cost is explained in 43 subsection 1. These are the various circumstances. We are having this many explanation.
Unabsorbed depreciation, unabsorbed depreciation, unabsorbed capital expenditure on scientific research, unabsorbed family planning expenditure, unabsorbed business loss. In all these 4 cases, it is carried forwarded indefinitely. We will discuss that in set of carry forward adjustment. Next. Suppose, sir, I purchased some assets for scientific research, sir. I remove them now. From scientific research, I remove. What do you remove? You sold directly. If you sell, this is the answer they're asking. See, what's the format? Just a minute. What is the format here? Opening value first you should compute. Opening balance of the block as on first. Compute depreciation, assuming all these missions are new machineries, assuming values. What is the opening balance? We have to compute depreciation. By the way, in this question, we have to compute depreciation. How much this March? If they tell you written down, we should compute opening value as on 1st April. Don't put it here directly. Always come. What is the value available for depreciation? 10 lakh 50,000 minus. Out of this 10 lakh 50, value available for depreciation. This actually fifth point is called as what? Value available for depreciation. Nothing but WDP. Balance value is called as how much? Balance value is how much? 6 lakh 50. This is used now? Yes. Again, this 6 lakh 50. First allocate the above value. This 6 lakh 50 shall be allocated for assets used for less than 180. How much is the asset used for less than 180? 3 lakh. First I will allocate here. 3 lakh. Okay. Then balancing figure. Out of 10 lakh 50, 4 lakh is allocated for assets not used because that is not at all eligible for depreciation. Then I allocated the value first. Then I allocated the value for the assets used for less than 180. Still I have a balance amount. What's the balance amount I have? 6 lakh 50 minus 3, then 3 lakh 50,000 is the balancing figure here. 3 lakh 50,000 is the balancing figure. On this apply full rate, on this apply full rate. Whereas on this apply half rate into 15% into 1 by 2 is equal to 3 lakhs into 15% divided by 3 lakhs into 15% divided by 2 is equal to 22,500. Whereas 3 lakh 50,000 into 5,000 rupee. That's it. This is normal depreciation. I hope until now everyone understood. Okay, everyone understood. Now, additional part number 2. See, depreciation working note will always have two parts. Part 1 normal depreciation, part 2 additional. Additional will be given for manufacturing sector or power sector who is following block of asset method. Only for them additional depreciation will be given. Now, machinery in our problem which is acquired and not installed. How much is the value of the machinery? 4 lakh, which we acquired and not used. Yes or no? 4 lakhs is something which we acquired and not used. So no additional depreciation. Mission number, some mission we purchased more than or equal to 180 days I have used. How much is the which is there? Extra additional depreciation is there. Less than 180 days it is there. Half only the claim. This year remaining 10% can be claimed. That amount is 3 lakhs. Depreciation 90 is equal to 1,65,000 is the total depreciation. Now I will come back to block. So less depreciation. How much it is? 1,65,000 I will reduce. What is the balance? An easy answer. I hope every one of you understood. I clearly explained the logic. If at all you depreciation is eligible only if the asset is put to use. Only the asset is put to use. Yes, assets which are required in the year and not at all balancing on relevant. For claiming additional depreciation, purchase cost is relevant. Now again, additional depreciation can be claimed only when value is there. Then allocate it for balancing on balancing figure full rate. When you are claiming additional depreciation, this value 10 lakh 50 is irrelevant. What is relevant for claiming additional depreciation? Purchase cost is relevant. For claiming additional depreciation, purchase cost is relevant. Now again, additional depreciation can be claimed only when it is installed. If it is not installed, zero. If it is installed and used for more than 180 days, depreciation computation format. No. Conditions. SSC must be the owner. Asset must be put to use during the year. Now, what is a block of asset? Block of asset means what? Under income tax, block of asset means asset falling under same category, carrying same rate of depreciation. Categories means what? We have only 4 categories of assets. We have only 4 categories: intangibles, buildings, furniture. Any other item is a plant and machinery. Any other asset is a plant and machinery. Now, under plant and machinery, we have various other categories. I will show you. Under plant and machinery, we have 30% block is there. We have 45% block. We have 40% block. We have 20%. We have 15%. Most important in exam is 15% block. 40% block is important. What all comes under 40% block? Especially computers, including computer software and computer printers. Computer printer is eligible for 40% rate. Remember this. Okay, books eligible for 40%. Renewable energy devices, windmills and solar panels 40%. Pollution control all the 40%. Aeroplanes engines 40%. All sea vessels, all ocean related, water related vehicles 20%. Road related vehicles 15%. Side away. Getting it? Now, any other furniture, they are all eligible for side away 10%. Building side away eligible for 10%. Water supply treatment, temporary wooden structures building 40%. Building used for residential purposes and all 5%. Subsidy building is used for staff quarters. On that you can claim only 5% depreciation. You cannot claim 10% depreciation. As simple as such. Clear. So depreciation is completed majorly. Additional depreciation is eligible only for new plant and machinery which is acquired and installed and does not include second hand machinery, does not include machinery installed in office or residential premises because it is not used in manufacturing process. Office appliances is not eligible. Ships, aircrafts, road transport vehicles, all transport vehicles not eligible. Any machinery
and various explanations are
which is on which 100% depreciation, 100% deduction is possible, that is also not eligible for additional depreciation. Remember, additional depreciation is something that is to be reduced from block of assets. That is why this logic is, that is why this kind of condition is given. Fine. Anyhow, what is the rate of additional depreciation? Directly 20% of the actual cost. What are the purchase prices on that 20% directly actual cost? And further, if new machinery is used for to use less than money, only 10% additional depreciation is allowed in the current year. Balance 10% is allowed in the next financial year. That's why in the additional depreciation, if you see the format of additional depreciation, I've given you 4. Balance AD to be claimed. This format, if you remember, you will never miss a you will never do a mistake. Always remember concept. You should remember problem solving structure also. You should understand. Both if you understand only, you will do a problem without a mistake. Some students focus only on the concept, but not on the structure of solving the problem. Structure is important. You will never understand the structure by solving tens and hundreds of problems. Structure of the problem. The moment when you're thinking about the provision, at the time itself, you should think about what structure you solve. I hope every one of you understood depreciation now clearly. How to compute depreciation, especially, sir, how did we got 10 lakh 50? How this 10 lakh 50 is allocated here? 4 lakh is not used. 3 lakh is for less than 80. 3 lakh 50 is for remaining balancing figure. Why we allocated like this? Entire logic I told. I hope every one of you understood depreciation correctly. Just give me confirmation. Just give me confirmation. I'll proceed further. Go to actual cost. Now,
actual cost will differ. Actual cost will differ. Asset used for scientific research subsequently got business. That means I have used an asset for scientific research. That means I would have already claimed deduction under section 35. Then subsequently I'm bringing that asset to the normal course of business. Then actual cost plus deduction under section 35 will be the actual cost. Then explanation 1. Stock in trade converted into capital asset. That means I'm having some stock in trade. We talked about 28 plus 7. Stock in trade is converted into capital asset. Then fair market value on the date of transfer is the actual cost. Acquired by way of gift or inheritance. Someone has given some asset as gift or inheritance. Then WDV in the answer of the previous order. Cost of acquisition cost of the previous order. Same like capital gain as for 49 section 1. Then the WDV in the answer of the previous one will be the actual cost. Conversion of unlisted company into LLP. So asset acquired at higher price with view to claim high depreciation. So these are various circumstances they will be saying or talking. And in this circumstance, the actual cost will be WDV of the previous one or the fair market value or the stamp duty value. This is not a much relevant topic, man. With this, we can say that we are done with the discussion of section 32 depreciation. Section 28 is a charging section. Section 29 is a computation section. Section 30 is expenditure relating to building. Section 31 is expenditure relating to plant, machinery, and furniture. Section 32 is depreciation. The general slot, the part 1 of profits and gains of business or professions comes to an end. Are you comfortable with what I'm talking to you? Yes. Then, my dear students, I'm moving into part 2 discussion, which is composite income. That
So I told you, right, in depreciation, no, opening balance is different, WDV is different. WDV as on 31st March, if at all, they give immediately, you should see, is it before depreciation, after depreciation? If nothing is given, that's a before depreciation value. That's a before depreciation value. Getting it? I will share this PDF in the Telegram group, kindly wait, okay? So, once the class is over, in some half an hour or 40 minutes, I will share it in the Telegram group. Okay. So now in depreciation opening, so WDV as on 31st March is given. No words. After depreciation, the word is not there. Then that's before depreciation. Minus 15%, 20%, 40, whatever it happens. Then you will get closing value after depreciation. That is opening value in the current year. This is where many students do mistake. They think the depreciation calculation is right. Suddenly when they see the suggestion answer, how can they calculate like this? Because WDV as on 31st March, if at all, it is simply given like this. It is always before depreciation. It is not after depreciation. That's it. Next, what is actual cost? Actual cost is something any machinery you purchase, any asset you purchase. What is actual cost? You should first decide. In this, some explanations were there. Suppose no, there is one important explanation. One, if asset is used for business, after he is using it for scientific. So originally I purchased for scientific research, they became 100% reduction. Now I brought into a normal business. I will add it to block of asset that asset. At what price? Nil. Actual cost minus reduction allowed under 35, which is generally nil. Sir, I am converting inventory into capital asset. It's actually a stock in trade, sir. Now I want to use it as part of I'm a furniture shop, sir. Minus furniture shop. I manufacture furniture, sir. This I will sell to customers, generate 1 lakh rupees, sir. But this furniture, I am using it as part of my whoever is coming customers or visitors. No, for their seating purpose, I am using it. As an office furniture, I am going to use it. If inventory is converted into a depreciable asset, if inventory converted into a fixed asset, then in the block, no furniture block, how much will add? Fair market value on the rate of conversion. Fair market value means what? At what price you sell to customer, that value will add it. So remaining not that important. Directly eighth one, sir. I borrowed a loan. I borrowed some loan for purchasing a machine. Until the machine is used, until the machine is installed and ready for use, whatever interest expenditure is there, that will be added to block of asset. Interest expenditure up to asset first to put to use, that is added to block. Explanation 5. If at all any building brought into business, some building is that I brought into business. Now I need to add the building in the block, right? I purchased this building, constructed this building for 10 crore. Don't add 10 crore. Actual cost is how much? 10 crore, right? Minus notional depreciation. What is notional depreciation? Very simple. Until last year, this year you added in the block, right? Until last year, how many years you have used the building for some other purpose? 5 years, sir. For 5 years, WDV basis, calculate depreciation on the building. 10 crore minus first year 10%, then 9 crore minus 10% second year 8.1 crore third year minus 10% 7 point something minus 10% 6 point minus 10% some 5 point something or maybe 5.9 like that. So calculate the opening value of that building for the current year after reducing notional depreciation. That value added in our block. In the last September 24, no, the owner has brought car into business. The owner has brought car into business. Car he purchased 10 years ago, some 5 years ago at some 20 lakh. That he brought into the business now after 5 years. Rate of depreciation 15. At what price it should be added in the block? Original cost only. You see here, actual cost. What is it? Actual cost minus notional. No, I strike it. Only actual cost. Only if it is building, use it for some other purpose, bringing into business, then notional depreciation shall reduce and then add. Remaining my personal assets, bringing into business, at what price I purchase, same price I will add. Remember this point. Next up. Next up. That's it. In this mainly 1, 5, 8. These are the main explanations ready for exam. Actually, everything is important, but this is enough. This is enough. Then return on value. Return on value. This is not required. This is not required. Okay, it's easy only. Then carry forward and set off of depreciation. I will discuss this in set off and carry forward losses. Now it is not relevant. Okay, right now in PGBP level it is not relevant. Now the next deduction 30 we complete.
That is, you may have income from rubber, coffee, or tea. That is, we have 3 rules made for students. Rule number 7A, rule number 7B, and rule number 8. Rule number 7 is applicable to rubber. The percentage is 65-35. Rule number 7B is applicable to coffee. We are having 2 types of coffee. One is normal coffee and abnormal coffee. If it is normal coffee, then 75-25, and abnormal coffee 60-40, and rule 80 it is 60-40. My dear rubber students. Professional whose gross receipts are less than the specified limit given above are also required to maintain books of accounts, but this is not specified in the rule. That is regarding the books of accounts. No need to worry about it. So we are having 3 rules: rule number 7, rule number 7B, rule number 8. Rule number 7 applicable to rubber. The percentage is 65-35. Rule number 7B, 2 things are there: normal coffee, abnormal coffee. Normal coffee 75-25, and abnormal coffee 60-40. Whereas rule number 80, 60-40 is the limit. Always the upper limit is agricultural income and lower limit is business income. This is what the percentage is all about. That's it with regard to section 33AB. Only 3 rules you have to keep in mind. It is agricultural income and lower coffee. Normal coffee 75, rule number 8. Of course, but this has not not specified in the rule that is regarding the books of accounts, no need to worry about it. So we are having three rules, rule number 7, rule number 7B, rule number 8. Rule number 7 applicable to rubber, the percentage is 65, 35. Rule number 7B, two things are there, normal coffee, abnormal coffee. Normal coffee 75, 25 and abnormal coffee 60, 40. Whereas rule number 80, 60, 40 is the limit. Always the upper limit is agricultural income and lower limit is business income. This is what the percentage is all about. That's it with regard to section 33AB, only three rules you have to keep in mind. So what is section 28? Charging section. What is section 29? Computation section. What is section 30? Expenditure relating to building. What is section 31? Expenditure relating to plant, machinery and furniture. What is section 32? This is the block 1 or part 1 of deduction. Then section 33AB, tea, coffee or rubber, we are having three rules, rule number 7A, rule number 7B, rule number 8. And coming to section 35 straight away, which is expenditure on scientific research. Expenditure on scientific research classified into two categories. Number one is in-house research and contribution to outsiders. In-house research, you can incur that either before commencement of business or after commencement of business. If it is before commencement of business, maybe allowed students. Any assessee carrying on business, sir, for example, I'm carrying a business, I'm incurring sir expenditure before commencing the business. Before I start the business, I'm incurring expenditure. You have to check whether the expenditure is a revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If it is revenue expenditure, provisions of 35 subsection 1 class 1 will be applicable. If it is capital expenditure, provisions of 35 subsection 1 class 4 is applicable. You have to check whether that revenue expenditure is salary excluding perquisites and material, then 100% deduction. Other than salary, no deduction will be allowable. Whereas capital expenditure is governed under 35 subsection 1 class 4, you have to check land, building or others. Land means no deduction, building means 100% deduction and others means 100% deduction. But this is very important. Incurred within 3 years immediately preceding the commencement of the business. So before start of the business, my dear students, if any expenditure has been incurred, I can claim it as a deduction. But I have to check whether that is a revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. In the revenue expenditure, two classifications are there: salary excluding perquisites and material, others. Salary excluding perquisites and material is 100% deduction, others no deduction. Whereas capital expenditure, land, building and others, land no deduction, building and others are 100%. But 100 years before incurred expenditure cannot be claimed as a deduction. Only 3 years before can be claimed as a deduction. After commencement of business, you have started the business. Once you started the business, sir, the assessee can be classified into two categories, but because you know on what form you have started, whether you have started as company or other than company. If it is by company, my dear students, you can incur either revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If it is revenue expenditure, 100% deduction as per 35 subsection 2AB. Whereas capital expenditure, we are having land, building and others. Land, anyway, no deduction will be allowed. For building, 35 subsection 2AB is not providing any deduction, whereas 35 subsection 1 class 4 is providing 100% deduction. 35 subsection 2AB is 100% deduction. But other than company, other assessee, you have to check revenue expenses. Revenue expenditure 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 1. Whereas capital, you have to again classify into land, building and others. Land means no deduction, building and others means always 100% deduction. Now, who's an eligible company? Because after commencement of business, the deduction is based upon what is the status of the assessee. So, eligible company under section 35 subsection 2AB, the company should be engaged in the business of biotechnology or business of manufacture or production of any article of thing, not being article specified in 11th schedule or an approved in-house research and development facility. Only this company is entitled to claim deduction under section 35 subsection 2AB. We understood that section 35 classified into two categories: explanation and scientific research, either in-house research contribution or contribution to outsiders. In-house research means a business
completed. 31 will be completed. 32 will be completed. Okay, 35. What is 35? Under 35, you have expenses. 35 section itself is dealing related to scientific research, social research, all that. R&D related, nothing but. Suppose no, if the SSC is incurring directly on his own, 100% deduction under both the regimes. Directly he is spending. By the way, in depreciation, default tax regime, one provision is there. Additional depreciation you cannot claim under default tax regime. Additional depreciation you cannot claim under default tax regime. And if at all in the current year you are choosing default tax regime, whatever brought forward depreciation is there, right? In that brought forward depreciation, brought forward additional depreciation component is there, right? You cannot further carry forward, right? Add back to the block. Add back to the block. What is it? Add back to the block, because you are choosing default tax regime. That's it. That's the adjustment. Okay, fine. So scientific research. What is scientific research? Two ways you can spend this. Either you incur directly or you donate. Donations for scientific research, no deduction under default tax regime. Suppose, sir, I'm not donating to anybody, sir. I'm only incurring on my own. I have R&D department is there, research and development. I have every day, every month. Some new projects will start. We'll be developing products. Some expense will incur. What about this? Anybody can claim deduction. Optional tax regime, normal tax regime. Anybody can claim deduction if it is directly incurred. So directly incurred means what? Whatever. Suppose, no, one more thing. Suppose if your company is doing R&D. Suppose if your company is incurring directly, they're spending directly on scientific research. The expenditure must be related to business of the SC. You cannot do research on some other which is not related.
Business plan is incurring expenses within the business, whereas contribution to outsiders is giving money to some other party outside, and they are asking the others to what do the business. That is very important, man. Contribution to outsiders is applicable only under optional tax regime as per the normal provisions of the Act 115 BAC subsection 1A. That means if you are going out of the scheme under 115 BAC, then only you are entitled to claim land any class 4 is applicable. You are section 35 straight away, which is expenditure on scientific research. Expenditure on scientific research classified into two categories. Number one is in-house research and contribution to outsiders. In-house research, you can incur that either before commencement of business or after commencement of business. If it is before commencement of business, maybe about students, any assessee carrying on business, sir, for example, I'm carrying a business, I'm incurring sir, expenditure before commencing the business. Before I start the business, I'm incurring expenditure. You have to check whether the expenditure is a revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If it is a revenue expenditure, provisions of 35 subsection 1 class 1 will be applicable. If it is capital expenditure, provisions of 35 subsection 1 class 4 is applicable. You have to check whether the revenue expenditure is salary excluding perquisites and material, then 100% deduction. Other than salary, no deduction will be allowed. Whereas capital expenditure is governed under 35 subsection 1 clause 4. You have to check land, building or others. Land means no deduction, building means 100% deduction, and others means 100% deduction. But this is very important. Incurred within 3 years immediately deduction. Whereas capital expenditure, land, building and others, land no started the business. Once you started the business, sir, the assessee can be classified into two categories, but because you know on what form you have started, whether you started as company or other than company. If it is by company, my dear lovable students, you can incur either revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If it is revenue expenditure, 100% deduction as per 35 subsection 2AB. Whereas capital expenditure, we are having land, building and others. Land, anyway, no deduction will be allowed. For building, 35 subsection 2AB is not providing any deduction, whereas 35 subsection 1 clause 4 is providing 100% deduction. 35 subsection 2AB is 100% deduction. But other than company, other assessee, you have to check revenue expenses. Revenue expenditure 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 1. Whereas capital, you have to again classify into land, building and others. Land means no deduction, building and others means always 100% deduction. Now, who's an eligible company? Because after commencement of business, the deduction is based upon what is the status of the assessee. So eligible company under section 35 subsection 2AB, the company should be engaged in the business of biotechnology or business of manufacture or production of any article of thing, not being article specified in 11th schedule or an approved in-house research and development facility. Only this company is entitled to claim deduction under section 35 subsection 2AB. We understood that section 35 classified into two categories: expenditure on scientific research, either in-house research contribution or contribution to outsiders. In-house research means a businessman is incurring expenses within the business, whereas contribution to outsiders means is giving money to some other party outside and they are asking the others to what do the business. That is very important, man. Contribution to outsiders is applicable only under optional tax regime as per the normal provisions of the Act 115 BAC subsection 1A. That means if you are going out of the scheme under 115 BAC, then only you are entitled to claim contribution to outsiders. So contribution to outsiders. That means if you are going out of the scheme under 115 BAC, then only you are entitled to claim contribution to outsiders. So contribution to outsiders, these are the guys you will contribute to approved research association, university or college. Then if it is scientific research, 100% deduction as per 35 subsection 1 clause 2. If you are contributing to social and statistical research, 100% deduction as per 35 subsection 1 clause 3. If you are contributing to IIT, National Laboratory, University for scientific research, 100% deduction 35 subsection 2A. Whereas to approved Indian company in research and development, scientific research, 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 2A. Now we are having certain clarificatory notes. If land and building purchased through a composite agreement, then cost of land and building shall be bifurcated, because for land no deduction, but for building deduction is there. So if you are paying consolidated consideration, if you purchase these two, you have to split on the basis of fair market value, because cost of land is not allowed as deduction. Unabsorbed research capital expenditure. In case if you are incurring capital expenditure and there is unabsorbed research capital expenditure, can be set off and carry forward, same as unabsorbed depreciation. How unabsorbed depreciation you have to deal? There's unabsorbed depreciation can be set off against PGBP, it can be set off against any other income, except salary, it can be carried forward indefinitely. All those provisions will be applicable even for the unabsorbed capital expenditure. No depreciation allowed on 35%. Because once you purchase an asset for 35, scientific research 100% of the deduction you claim it. Then why are you asking for normal and additional depreciation? So it won't be applicable. Deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 2, class 3, 35 subsection 2A shall not be denied if the approval of such institution has been withdrawn after payment by us. For example, I made the payment to a research association, but their registration has been cancelled. It's not my mistake. For me, deduction section 35 is allowed. Now moving to the last one, sale of asset used for scientific research. I have purchased an asset and I have used that asset for scientific research under section 35. After that usage, my dear allowable students, I'm selling that asset. What you have to check is, sir, after the scientific research, have you sold after being used for the purpose of other business? That means first I have used it for scientific research, then after that scientific research, my dear allowable students, I have used it for normal business and then I'm selling that asset. So if I use it for normal business means I would have included in the block of the asset as per 43 subsection 6. Regulatory section 50 apply, lead to capital gain. No sir, after scientific research I have not used it for the normal business. I have directly sold that asset. Then 41 subsection 3 will apply, deemed profit leads to PGBP. That is either the actual sale proceeds or deduction claimed under section 35. After that usage, my dear allowable students, I'm selling that asset. What you have to check is, sir, after the scientific research, have you sold after being used for the purpose of other business? That means first I have used it for scientific research, then after that scientific research, my dear allowable students, I have used it for normal business and then I'm selling that asset. So if I use it for normal business means I would have included in the block of the asset as per 43 subsection 6. Regulatory section 50 apply, lead to capital gain. No sir, after scientific research I have not used it for the normal business. I have directly sold that asset. Then 41 subsection 3 will apply, deemed profit leads to PGBP. That is either the actual sale proceeds or deduction claimed under 35 subsection 1 class 4, whichever is lower is the asset. So once I purchase any asset for scientific research, for how much I should hold that asset, there is no locking period in respect of the asset. This is the one line summary of section 35. Section 35.3.5 can be classified into 3 categories: 35 subsection 1, 35 subsection 2A, and 35 subsection 2AB. 35 subsection 1 again classified into 5 categories: 35 subsection 1 class 1, 35 subsection 1 class 2, 35 subsection 1 class 2A, 35 subsection 1 class 3, and 35 subsection 1 class 4. 35 subsection 1 class 1 is for revenue expenditure. That means if any revenue expenditure incurred, you can claim it as deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 1. Whereas if you are incurring any capital expenditure, then 35 subsection 1 class 4 will be applicable. Whereas 35 subsection 1 class 2 is scientific research. 35 subsection 1 class 2A scientific research to approved in Indian company, and 35 subsection 1 class 3 is social or statistical research. These three are contribution to outsiders. These three are contribution to outsiders. And you are contributing to IIT National Laboratory University as per section 35 subsection 2AA, and 35 subsection 2AB is for company. So this is the structure of section 35. Section 35 can be classified into 3 categories: 35 subsection 1, 35 subsection 2AA, and 35 subsection 2AB. 35 subsection 1 again classified into 5 categories: 35 subsection 1 class 1, 35 subsection 1 class 2, 35 subsection 1 class 2A, 35 subsection 1 class 3, and class 4. 1 and 4 are revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Whereas these are contribution to outsiders and contribution to outsiders. This is company after commencement of the business when to the code. The deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 2 and contribution to outsiders. This is company after commencement of the business when to the code. The deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 2 or 2A or 3 or 2AA shall not be denied if approval of such institution has been withdrawn after payment of some by the SEC. After I contribute their deduction withdrawn, their license withdrawn, I can still claim it as a deduction. No depreciation allowed on asset used for 35. If land and building purchased from a composite agreement, then the cost of land and building shall be bifurcated on the basis of fair market value, because cost of land is not allowed as deduction. Same point we have discussed. Unabsorbed depreciation and capital expenditure can be set off and carry forward, same as unabsorbed depreciation. Deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 2, class 2AA, 2AB, earlier it was 150%, but now for our examination, all the section it is 100%. 35 subsection 1, payers shall be entitled to deduction of this section only if the donor institute prepares statement in form number 10BD and submitted to PGBP systems up to 31st May of the next financial year. That means if we contribute to this association, that way the person was received should prepare a statement and should furnish to the income tax department. The donor institution furnishes certificate to the donor. If we contribute some amount to this way, they should give a certificate stating that this much amount we have contributed, then only we are entitled to claim the deduction. Now, sale of asset purpose and expenditure of capital nature on scientific research. Deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 1, what expenditure? Revenue expenditure. And 35 subsection 1 class 4, what expenditure? Capital expenditure. Regulatory 35 subsection 2 will be available to an assessee under both regime, subject to fulfillment of stipulated condition. That means, sir, if you are contributing to, if you are incurring any revenue expenditure or capital expenditure under both regime, it is allowed. Notified approved research association, university or college or other institution. Deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 2. That means if you are contributing to a research association, would be available to assessee only if we exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided under 115 BSc subsection 1. That means in-house research is applicable to both the ways. Whether whatever may be the route, it is applicable. Whereas contribution to outside 35 subsection 1 class 2 is available only if you taken the opt-out. Approved Indian company for scientific research 35 subsection 1 class 2A would be available to assessee only if we exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided under 115 BSc subsection 1. So this is again contribution to outsider. Approved notified research association, university, college or institution. Deduction under 35 subsection 1 class 3 would be available to assessee only if we exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided under 115 BSc subsection 1. And some pay to national laboratory 35 subsection 2A. Deduction under 35 subsection 2A would be available to assessee only if we exercise the option of under section 115 BSc. So what is one line summary? In-house research will be allowed as deduction whatever may be the route. Whereas contribution to outsiders will be allowed as deduction only if you come out of 115 BSc route and travel to the normal route. Clear? I'm moving into the next one. Are you clear up to this? with regard to section 35, expenditure on scientific research. Comfortable? Yes, fantastic. We'll be doing section 35AD, which is specified business. So in case of individual HUF, AOP, BOI carrying on specified business, deduction under 35AD would be available only if they exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided under 115 BAC subsection 1. That means for 115 BAC route for individual HUF, AOP, BOI, AJP, section 35AD provisions will not be applicable. So this is a very important amendment. If such as is paying concessional rate of tax under the HUF, exercise the option of shifting. So in case of individual HUF, AOP, BOI carrying on specified business, deduction under 35AD would be available only if they exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided under 115 BAC subsection 1. That means for 115 BAC route for individual HUF, AOP, BOI, AJP, section 35AD provisions will not be applicable. So this is a very important amendment. If such as is paying concessional rate of tax under the default tax regime under 115 BAC, deduction under 35AD would not be available. That means this is a block or group of people, individual HUF, AOP, BOI, AJP. For this guys, 5 people, sir, they may travel through the 115 BAC route or opt out from the 115 BAC route. If you are traveling through 115 BAC route, no deduction under 35AD. A company would be eligible for deduction under 35AD if it opt for the special provisions of 115 BAA or 115 BAP. That means in case it does is a company, my dear students, then company would not be eligible. So if a company is also enjoying the concessional rate of tax under 115 BAA or 115 BAB, then even for that 35AD will not be applicable. So this is the amendment we have to take care. Now, assessee can claim 100% reduction on capital expenditure under 35AD instead of 32 depreciation if you undertake the below specified business. That means if you are engaged in the 14 specified business and if you opt out of the default tax regime, you are entitled to claim deduction under 35AD. These are the important 14 businesses: cold chain facility, warehousing facility for agricultural produce, warehousing facility for sugar and honey and wax. Then the next set is housing project, which may be slum redevelopment or affordable housing, or hotel 2-star or above, and fertilizer plant, hospital of at least 100 bed, and semiconductor wafer fabrication. With regard to part 3, the additional businesses are infrastructure like road, highway, railway project, etc., inland container depot, cross-country pipeline network for distribution of natural gas, crude oil, slurry pipeline for transportation of iron. So if you are starting this 14 specified business, and if you are opting out of the default tax regime, then 100% of the capital expenditure, whatever you are incurring, can be claimed as a deduction under section 35AD. Every business, sir, it is 100% only, but for every business, there is a starting period, my dear laboratory students. For example, setting up and operating a cold chain facility means it should start upon or after 1/4/2009. Then only you are entitled to claim deduction under 35AD. Like for example, setting up and operating a warehousing facility for sugar, the cutoff date is 1/4/2012 is what the cutoff date, my dear laboratory students. Now, part number 2, I am moving from 35AD, which is expenditure not eligible for deduction. Assume that I have started 35AD business. I have came out of the default tax regime, but still for goodwill, financial instrument, and land, for these 3 items, you are not entitled to claim deduction. That means for GIL, goodwill, instrument, and land, we are not entitled for deduction. When you claim the deduction, my dear students, you have to again check whether any cash payment exceeding 10,000 or 35,000 is there. Any expenditure in respect of which a payment or aggregate of payment made to a person in a day, otherwise done by account pay check or account pay bank draft, electronic clearing system or such electronic mode as to be prescribed through a bank account or through such electronic mode, exceeds 10,000. For example, I have incurred a capital expenditure for that I have made a payment in cash, then it is not entitled for deduction under 35AD. Now the connected section, section 10AA, which is applicable to SEZ unit, no deduction allowed under other provisions of the Act in respect of expenditure for which deduction allowed under this section. So once you claim deduction under 35AD, my dear students,
நான் பேசிட்டு கேட்கணும் நினைக்கிறேன். இருங்க, நம்ம கொஞ்சம் தண்ணி குடிச்சிட்டு வரேன். நான் பேசிட்டு கேக்குதா? மியூட் போட்டு தான் எடுத்தேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். கேக்குதா இல்லையா? போய் தண்ணி வேற குடிக்கணும். போய் தண்ணி எடுத்துவா. நான் பேசிட்டு கேக்குதா? மியூட் போட்டு தான் எடுத்தேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். கேக்குதா இல்லையா? போய் தண்ணி வேற குடிக்கணும். போய் தண்ணி எடுத்துவா. பேசிட்டு கேக்குதா? மியூட் போட்டு தான் எடுத்தேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். கேக்குதா இல்லையா? போய் தண்ணி வேற குடிக்கணும். ராகுல் வீடியோஸ் ப்ரோ, எப்படி மேரத்தான் மட்டும் படிச்சா போய் தனியல் எப்படி ப்ரோ? ஒரு நிமிஷம் பேசிட்டு கேக்குதா? மியூட் போட்டு தான் எடுத்தேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். கேக்குதா இல்லையா? போய் தண்ணி வேற குடிக்கணும். ராகுல் வீடியோஸ் ப்ரோ, எப்படி மேரத்தான் மட்டும் படிச்சா போய் தனியல் எப்படி ப்ரோ? ஒரு நிமிஷம் பேசிட்டு கேக்குதா? மியூட் போட்டு தான் கேக்குதா இல்லையா? போய் தண்ணி வேற குடிக்கணும். ராகுல் வீடியோஸ் ப்ரோ, எப்படி மேரத்தான் மட்டும் படிச்சா போய் தனியல் எப்படி ப்ரோ? ஒரு நிமிஷம் ஆட் போட்டாலுமா இப்போ வந்து ஒரு ஆட் போடுறாங்க. ஆட் போட்டா வந்து எனக்கு ஆட் வருது. நான் ஆட் இன்சர்ட் பண்ண போறேன் பிகாஸ் லைவ் போட்ட ஆட் வரும். ஒரு ஆட் போடுறேன். ஒருவேளை இந்த வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆட் வந்துச்சுன்னா அது கொஞ்சம் கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல சொல்லுங்க. பிகாஸ் என்னோட வீடியோல ஆட் வந்து இப்போ வந்து ஒரு ஆட் போடுறேன். ஸோ ஒருவேளை நீங்க இந்த லைவ் வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆட் வந்துச்சுன்னா கொஞ்சம் கமெண்ட்ல சொல்லுங்க. இப்போ நானும் ஆட் பண்ணி பார்த்து ஆட் போடுறேன், செக் பண்ணி பாருங்க. லைவ் போட்ட ஆட் வரும். ஒரு ஆட் போடுறேன். ஒருவேளை இந்த வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆட் வந்துச்சுன்னா அது கொஞ்சம் கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல சொல்லுங்க. பிகாஸ் என்னோட வீடியோல ஆட் பேசியிருக்கோம். ஒரு ஆட் போடுறேன். ஸோ ஒருவேளை நீங்க இந்த லைவ் வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆட் வந்துச்சுன்னா கொஞ்சம் கமெண்ட்ல சொல்லுங்க. இப்போ நானும் ஆட் பண்ணி பார்த்து ஆட் போடுறேன், செக் பண்ணி பாருங்க. லைவ் போட்ட ஆட் வரும். ஒரு ஆட் போடுறேன். ஒருவேளை இந்த வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆடும் வரல, ஒரு டேஷும் வரல, கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல சொல்லுங்க. உங்களுக்கு எதனா ஆட் வந்துச்சுன்னா நீங்க கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல சொல்லுங்க. ஸோ ஒருவேளை நீங்க இந்த லைவ் வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது உங்களுக்கு ஆட். அதுக்கு முன்னாடி ராகுல் வீடியோஸ் கேட்டிருந்தாரு, எப்படி மேரத்தான் வீடியோ மட்டும் பார்த்து படிக்கிறேன்னு. தலைவரே, நான் வந்து வெறும் மேரத்தான் வீடியோஸ் மட்டும் வச்சுலாம் படிக்க முடியாது. நான் கிடையாது, யாராலுமே வந்து மேரத்தான் வீடியோஸ் பார்த்து படிக்க முடியாது. நிறைய இருக்கு, நீங்க வந்து நிறைய தேடி படிக்கும். கூகுள்ல வந்து நீங்க டவுட் இருந்துச்சு நீங்க சாட் ஜிபிடி கேட்கலாம். யூடியூப்ல வந்து நிறைய வீடியோஸ் இருக்கும். ஒரே ஒரு வீடியோ பார்த்து மட்டும் நம்ம படிக்கக்கூடாது. லைக் எல்லாரும் சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல, ஒரு டீச்சரை மட்டும் வந்து நம்பி படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு. ஆப்வியஸா அது உண்மை. அது எப்போ உண்மையாகும் அப்படின்னா, நீங்க வந்து பிசிக்கலா ஒரு கிளாஸ்க்கு போறீங்க அப்படின்னா அது அப்படிதான் நீங்க ஃபாலோ பண்ணிடணும். பிகாஸ் எல்லாரும் ஃபாலோ பண்ணீங்கன்னா குழம்பிடுவீங்க. இது இது வந்தாலும் சரி, நீங்க யூடியூப்ல இருந்தாலும் சரி, நீங்க நிறைய வீடியோ நிறைய எல்லாம் பார்க்கும்போது வந்து குழம்பு தான் செய்வீங்க. பட் நீங்க வந்து அந்த எப்படி சொல்றது, அந்த நாமெட்ஸ் தானே அது, நாடோடிகள். நாடோடிகள் எங்க போனாலும் வந்து அடாப்ட் ஆயிப்பாங்க. அது மாதிரி நீங்க ஹிந்தி வீடியோ இருந்தாலும் சரி, தமிழ் வீடியோ இருந்தாலும் சரி, தெலுங்கு வீடியோ இருந்தாலும் சரி, நீங்க வந்து அவங்க சொல்ற கட்ஸை வந்து நீங்க புரிஞ்சுக்கணும். அதுக்கு வந்து நீங்க ஒரு நல்ல வீடியோ சூஸ் பண்ணணும். லைக் இப்போ ஏஎன்எம் சார்னா, இப்போ இந்த சார் வீடியோ இருக்குல்ல, இப்போ இந்த ஏஎன்எம் சார் வீடியோவே வந்து நான் பார்த்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. இப்போ எனக்கு வந்து டெப்ரிசியேஷன்ல ஒரு டவுட் வந்துச்சு, எப்படி ஃபார்மேட்ல வந்து டெப்ரிசியேஷன் கால்குலேட் பண்ணணும். ஸோ இப்போ நான் என்ன பண்ணேன், எனக்கு டவுட் தான் அது. அது எப்படி நாங்கள் கிளாரிஃபை பண்ணோம்னா, அதுக்கு வேற ஒரு வீடியோ ராமஷா சார் வந்து ஒரு வீடியோ போட்டிருக்காரு, பிஜி மோஸ்ட் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் சாப்டர். இப்போ இந்த வீடியோல நான் எல்லாமே பார்க்க போறேன். ரெண்டு விஷயம், டெப்ரிசியேஷன் தான் நான் பார்க்க போறேன். டெப்ரிசியேஷன் எப்படி ஃபார்மேட்ல கால்குலேட் பண்ணுறது நான் அழகா சொல்லியிருப்பாரு ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் வச்சு. ஸோ அவரை ஃபாலோ பண்றேன். அதே மாதிரி ஆக்சுவல் காஸ்ட் வந்து புரியுற மாதிரி சொல்லியிருப்பாரு, அது டெப்ரிசியேஷன் ஃபாலோ பண்றேன். அதே மாதிரி ஒரு சாருக்கும் வந்து நம்மளுக்கு ஒரு புரியும், சில புரியாம இருக்கலாம். அது நம்ம தான் வந்து புரிஞ்சுக்கணும். சில பேருக்கு வந்து ஒரு தடவை பார்த்தா புரியாது, 2 தடவை பார்த்தா புரியாது, 3 தடவை பார்த்தாலும் புரியாது, 4வது தடவை பார்த்தாலும் புரியாது. ஆனா 5வது தடவை பார்க்கும்போது ஒரு ஸ்பார்க் வரும். அது வந்து எக்ஸாக்டா என்னோட கேஸ் தான். அது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் இந்த வீடியோ பார்க்கும்போது எனக்கு உண்மை புரியாது. இந்த எத்தனாவது தடவை பாருங்க இந்த வீடியோவை, எல்லா தடையும் பார்ப்பேன். பட் ஒரு தடவை கூட இந்த வீடியோ நான் ஃபுல்லா பார்த்துக்க மாட்டேன். அதுதான் வந்து நம்ம அடாப்ட் ஆகிக்கணும். அடாப்ட்னு சொல்றதோட டிசிப்ளினா இருக்கணும். அதுக்கு நான் டிசிப்ளின்லாம் நான் சொல்ல மாட்டேன். பட் டிசிப்ளினா இருந்தா வந்து நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் 2 தடவை பார்க்கும்போது முடிச்சுட்டு இருப்பேன். இந்த வீடியோ நான் 10 தடவை மேல பார்த்துருக்கேன். பட் ஒரே ஒரு தடவை கூட 1 மணி நேரம் தாண்டி வந்தது. இன்னைக்கு தான் வந்து லைவ் போட்டேன் அப்படின்ற ஆப்ளிகேஷன், ஒரு லயபிலிட்டினால 1 மணி நேரம் வீடியோ பார்த்துருக்கேன். ஸோ இப்போ நெக்ஸ்ட் போய் நம்ம படிக்க வேண்டியதான். ஸோ கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல கொஞ்ச நேரம் ரெஸ்ட் எடுக்கிற மாதிரி ட்விட்டர் பார்க்கலாமா? யாருன்னா பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நீங்க கமெண்ட்ஸ்ல எதனா சொல்லுங்க. தேங்க்ஸ் ப்ரோ. ஓகே ப்ரோ. சரி, கொஞ்ச நேரம் நம்ம ட்விட்டர் பார்க்கலாம். ட்விட்டர்ல வந்து என்னோட ஐடி இருக்கு. நீங்க எதனா ட்விட்டர் யூஸ் பண்ணீங்களா? யாருன்னா ஒரு பெரிய ட்விட்டர் அடிக்ட் நானு. ட்விட்டர் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா மோஸ்டா கிரிக்கெட்டு, சினிமா, இது ரெண்டுத்துல தானே இருக்கும். எங்க நடுவில் வந்து இல்லங்கமா அதெல்லாம் சொல்லி நான் பொறுப்பு இல்லை. தக் லைஃப் இந்த படம் நல்லா இல்லைன்னு சொல்றாங்க எல்லாரும். பாவம், நேற்று வந்து கப்பு இதுல தூத்துட்டு இருக்கான், செத்துட்டு இருக்காங்க சில பேர். சரி, நம்ம ட்விட்டர்லாம் பார்க்கணும். நம்ம போய் பிஜிபி படிக்கலாம். நான் ட்விட்டர் பார்த்தலாம், அப்படியே பார்த்துட்டே இருப்பேன். ஸோ இப்போ வந்து நம்ம நெக்ஸ்ட் செகண்ட் பார்ட்டா அடுத்த சில பகுதிகள் படிக்க வேண்டியதுதான். இப்போ வரைக்கும் வந்து செக்ஷன் 28 சார்ஜிங் செக்ஷன், 29 கம்ப்யூட்டேஷனல் செக்ஷன், செக்ஷன் 30 ரெண்ட் ரேட்ஸ் அண்ட் டாக்ஸஸ் ரிலேட்டிங் டு பில்டிங், செக்ஷன் 31 இன்சூரன்ஸ் தானே, expenses insurance relating to plant and machinery and furniture, 32 depreciation, 33 AB tea, rubber and coffee, section 35 scientific research, section 35 AD இதான் தெரியல, நெக்ஸ்ட் இதுதான் பார்க்கணும். ஸோ நம்ம போய் மீதி இருக்கிறதெல்லாம் படிக்கலாம். அதுக்கு முன்னாடி எத்தனை பேர் இந்த வீடியோ பார்க்கணும்னு தெரியல. நம்ம எத்தனை பேர் வீடியோ நீங்க பேர் பார்க்கிறீர்கள்? இல்லை, 2 பேர் தான் பார்க்கிறீர்கள். ஸோ நம்ம டைரக்ட் டேக்ஸ் படிக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிடலாம்.
10K deduction you can claim. Right. Set off and carry forward loss from one specific business can be set off against profit from another specific business. So the loss of one specific business can be set off against profit from another specific business. And transfer of hotel. For example, you started a more than 2-star hotel and operation you are not able to see, so you are handing over that hotel to some other person. Assessee builds a hotel of 2-star and above and transfer operation to another person. Still, it is owning the hotel. You are entitled to claim 35 AD. With regard to chapter 6 reduction, heading C, other reduction, sir, you cannot claim. That means once you claim reduction of 35 AD, other reduction you cannot claim. Unabsorbed loss can be carried forward to indefinite period under section 73A. Because of specific business, if you are having any unabsorbed loss, that can be carried forward. Then assessee deemed to be carrying on business. This is what chapter 6A, sir, no reduction under chapter 6A, no reduction under 10AA, no reduction under the chapter 6A under heading C. Sir, loss from one business can be claimed set off against profit from the other business. Conditions to be satisfied. These are the general conditions you should satisfy if you want to claim 35 AD. Business should not set up by splitting up or reconstruction of business already in existence. That means you are not supposed to create already business into two and you cannot claim reduction of 35 AD. Business should not be set up by transfer specified business of plant and machinery previously used for any purpose. That means the plant and machinery should not be second-hand plant and machinery. If you are using second-hand plant and machinery, then it is not allowed. But in that second-hand category, my dear lovable students, 20% up to 20% is allowed. So 20% second-hand plant and machinery, no issues. Or if that plant and machinery has never been used in India, then it is allowed, my dear lovable students. These are the other conditions with regard to 35 AD. Between two business, transfer of goods and services should be at the fair market value. You should transact at fair market value. Audit of accounts for your chartered accountant is mandatory. There is a locking period, a specified business for 8 years. That means once you claim reduction of 35 AD, you should hold that asset for minimum 8 years. Any asset demolished, destroyed, or transferred, that means after claiming reduction of 35 AD, if you are selling that asset, then
to your business. So current year expenditure section into business. After adding into the now I sold, sir, it is treated as sale of part of a block. It is treated as what? Sale of directly income. Except land and goodwill. Except land, goodwill, and financial instrument. Nothing but shares and securities, land, goodwill. Except these, rest all of the building cost, everything can be claimed as reduction 100%. Only one condition. Major condition is what you know. Major condition is what you know. It must be a newly started business. The specific business must be newly started. It should not be established because of a demerger split up like that. Carrying some program under 2A, 100% deduction. Remember, deduction is allowed even after you donated. Their permission was lost. That doesn't matter. At the time of donation, the permission is there. That's enough. You will get a deduction. These deductions these are all donations. They are allowed only under optional tax regime. They are not allowed under default tax regime. That's it. That's it. Then 35 AD. 35 AD means what? 14 specified businesses were there. 14 specified businesses. If at all the SSC is involved in doing any of these 14 specified businesses, he can claim 100% reduction on capital expenditure incurred. Revenue anyway will claim. But for capital expenditure also, he can claim 100%. Capital expenditure means what? Except land and goodwill. Except land, goodwill, financial instrument. Nothing but shares and securities, land, goodwill. Except these, rest all other building cost, everything can be claimed as reduction 100%. Only one condition. Major condition is what you know. Major condition is what you know. It must be a newly started business. The specified business must be newly started. It should not be established because of a demerger split up like that. It is newly started. In that, up to 20% of the machinery can be second hand. Up to 20% of the machinery can be second hand. 80% minimum should be altogether new. Now, further, second hand machinery means what? If it is not used in India, that's enough. It is second hand. It is a new machine. Somebody used outside India, not an issue. Only for two conditions. It should not be used in India. On that, depreciation of 32 should not have been claimed earlier by anybody. Oh, and from income tax point of view, that is used completely outside. In India, it is not used. Nobody has claimed reduction. Then that's a new machinery. New machinery must be how much totally? Minimum 80%. Up to 20 can be second hand, not an issue. Further,
यस पीपल गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड आफ्टरनून, गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू। कैसे सब लोग? होप सो आप सब लोग बहुत बढ़िया रहेंगे। मैं बता दूं मैं भी बहुत अच्छा हूं। तो चलिए देनी पड़ेगी। तो ये 4 पॉइंट को एनालाइज करके, अग्रीमेंट को एनालाइज करके सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये जजमेंट दिया कि इस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट में ये समझ में आता है कि ये जो बसेस है ना, ये बसेस का अल्टीमेट ओनर लेसर ही है और लेसर को यहां पे डेप्रिसिएशन मिल जाएगा। मींस आईसीडीएस लिमिटेड है वो कैपिटल गेन में जो बिजनेस है या प्रिंटिंग एंड पब्लिशिंग का बिजनेस में ला लिया, तो क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि उस बिल्डिंग को जब आप अपने बिजनेस में आज लेके आते हो तो एक्चुअल कॉस्ट क्या होगी। तो उसकी एक्चुअल कॉस्ट के लिए आपको क्या करना है कि भैया जो पहले बिल्डिंग का कॉस्ट था कितना वो ले लो, और जितने दिन आपने बिजनेस में यूज नहीं किया उतने ईयर्स का आप नो 25% बिजनेस, 75% एग्रीकल्चर एंड नॉट। यस, अब एक और चीज समझना, अगर मान लो आपको कोई भी गवर्नमेंट ग्रांट मिल जाता है या गवर्नमेंट सब्सिडी मिल जाती है तो उसका क्या, साइड में ऑल इनकम ले लीजिए, डेबिट साइड में ऑल एक्सपेंसेस ले लीजिए और सब एक्सपेंसेस लेस करने के बाद कितना बचता है। लेकिन एक चीज ध्यान रखना, जो अपन 40-60 या 35-65 या 25-75 करते हैं ना, उससे पहले वो बाद में करना है। उससे पहले जो भी आपका नेट प्रॉफिट आता है उस नेट प्रॉफिट का 40% लीजिए और अमाउंट डिपॉजिटेड विच एवर इज लोअर है उतने का आपको डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। अब क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि जो भी अमाउंट हम नाबार्ड में डिपॉजिट करेंगे उस पैसे को यूज किसके लिए करना है। उस पैसे को आपको यूज करना है फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ द, जो पर्पस आपके टी कॉफी रबर बोर्ड ने डिफाइन कर रखे हैं। तो जो टी कॉफी रबर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड है उन्होंने कुछ डिफाइन कर रखे हैं पर्पस, उसके लिए आपको क्या करना है, उसको यूज करना है। अब ऐसे की ऐसी एक सेक्शन होती है, उस सेक्शन का नाम होता है 33 एबीए। 33 एबीए का डिडक्शन उन लोगों को मिलता है, ऑल एसएससी को मिलता है, और वो जो कि आपके प्रोस्पेक्टिंग, एक्सट्रैक्टिंग और प्रोडक्शन ऑफ द नेचुरल गैस और पेट्रोलियम इन इंडिया। मींस ऐसी कंपनियां जो इंडिया में क्या करती है, या तो पेट्रोलियम के लिए प्रोस्पेक्टेशन का काम करती है, एक्सट्रैक्शन का काम करती है, प्रोडक्शन का चार्ज बोला जाएगा, चार्ज बोला जाएगा और पीएनएल के क्रेडिट साइड में जाएगा। मींस ये पीजीबीपी में टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा। लेकिन आपने अगर इसको 117 में बेचा जिसका WDV 80 था तो आपको 37 का प्रॉफिट हुआ, और ये 37 के प्रॉफिट को दो पार्ट में डिवाइड करेंगे। सबसे पहले जो 20 का प्रॉफिट होगा ना, ये 20 का प्रॉफिट तो आपके पीजीबीपी हेड में जाएगा, पीएनएल के क्रेडिट साइड में। जो 20 का प्रॉफिट है वो तो बेटा फॉरवर्ड होता है और सिर्फ बिजनेस की इनकम से ही अगले सालों में सेट ऑफ हो सकता है। लेकिन अनअब्सॉर्ब डेप्रिसिएशन ऐसी चीज है, इसको आप कितने भी साल, अनलिमिटेड ईयर्स तक कैरी फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं। एंड गाइस, आगे वाले सालों में जाके भी वो किसी भी हेड से सेट ऑफ हो सकता है अदर देन योर सैलरी। यू गॉट माई पॉइंट और नॉट? यस, सो दिस इज द कंप्लीशन ऑफ योर डेप्रिसिएशन पार्ट। एक और चीज समझना, डेप्रिसिएशन में गाइस जो एडिशनल डेप्रिसिएशन था ना, जो एक्स्ट्रा डेप्रिसिएशन, समझने के लिए वाली कंपनी इन हाउस रिसर्च। अब आप रिसर्च पे खर्चे करते हैं, उसका डिडक्शन कैसे मिलेगा? तो दो टाइप पे खर्चे हो सकते हैं, एक तो आपका ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ बिजनेस और एक बिफोर कमेंसमेंट ऑफ द बिजनेस। अब एक बात समझना, ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ द बिजनेस का मतलब क्या होता है कि आप बिजनेस भी कर रहे हैं और आप रिसर्च भी कर रहे हैं। आप बिजनेस भी कर रहे हैं एंड आप रिसर्च भी कर रहे हैं। तो जैसे बिजनेस चल रहा है, रिसर्च भी चल रहा है। एग्जांपल के लिए रेनबेक्सी का बिजनेस भी चल रहा है, रिसर्च भी चल रहा है। आप कोई भी रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर करेंगे उस पे आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। अगर आप कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर करेंगे तो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में लैंड पे डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा, बाकी जो भी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर रहेगा उस पे आपको 100% डिडक्शन है वो मिल जाएगा। तो देखो, ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ बिजनेस में बिजनेस भी चल रहा है, रिसर्च भी चल रहा है, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर 100%, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर जो आप करेंगे उसमें लैंड का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा और बाकी वाले कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर पे आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। लेकिन एक बात समझना, अगर आप रिसर्च कर रहे हैं बिफोर कमेंसमेंट ऑफ द बिजनेस, मींस बिजनेस तो है ही नहीं और आप रिसर्च कर रहे हैं, जैसे एग्जांपल मैंने आपको क्लास में बताया था, जैसे एक बंदी है वो क्या करती है, आटा लेती है, हार्पिक लेती है और कुछ रिसर्च करती है कि इससे कोई ऐसी दवाई बन जाए करके, ठीक है। तो अगर बिफोर कमेंसमेंट ऑफ बिजनेस अगर कोई खर्चा करते हैं तो क्या वो अलाउ होगा या नहीं अलाउ होगा? तो गाइस एक चीज ध्यान रखना, अगर वो एक्सपेंडिचर आपने 3 इयर्स बिफोर द डेट ऑफ द कमेंसमेंट ऑफ बिजनेस किया है, मींस बिजनेस अभी चालू हुआ तो उसके पहले के 3 साल के अंदर अंदर अगर आपने एक्सपेंडिचर किया है तो वो अलाउ हो जाएगा। लेकिन उसमें ध्यान रखना, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर में सिर्फ आपका सैलरी और मटेरियल का खर्चा 100% डिडक्शन मिलेगा, बाकी रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर आपको अलाउ नहीं होंगे। तो मैंने क्या बोला, रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर में सिर्फ सैलरी और मटेरियल, और सैलरी में भी ध्यान रखना परक्यूजिट का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा। सैलरी एंड रेम्यूनरेशन का 100% डिडक्शन मिलेगा, सैलरी एक्सक्लूडिंग परक्यूजिट, एंड गाइस अदर रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा। और कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में वही वाली बात है कि लैंड का डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा, लैंड को छोड़ के बाकी कोई भी कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर रहेगा उस पर आपको 100% डिडक्शन है वो मिल जाएगा। अब एक और चीज समझना सर, कभी कभी अगर लैंड और बिल्डिंग साथ में खरीदा तो क्या करेंगे, क्योंकि लैंड पे डिडक्शन तो नहीं मिलता लेकिन बिल्डिंग पे डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। आंसर इज यस, बिल्डिंग पे आपको डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। तो उसकी वैल्यू को बाइफरकेट करना पड़ेगा और बिल्डिंग पे आपको 100% डिडक्शन लेना है, लैंड पे आपको डिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा। अब उसके बाद में आपका जो आता है दैट इज द डोनेशन और कंट्रीब्यूशन टू आउटसाइडर। मिस रिसर्च आप नहीं कर रहे हो, रिसर्च कोई और कर रहा है, आप जो है वो बेसिकली डोनेशन कर रहे हो। जैसे बहुत बार होता है ना कि जैसे मान लो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन है वो रिसर्च कर रही है, या कोई लेबोरेटरी रिसर्च कर रही है, आईआईटी रिसर्च कर रही है, नेशनल लेबोरेटरी रिसर्च कर रही है, और आप सिर्फ डोनेशन देते हो तो भी आपको डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। पीएनडल के डेबिट में आप खर्चा डाल सकते हैं, लेकिन बेटा सबसे पहले आपने डोनेशन किसको देना है। तो अगर आपने डोनेशन दिया है किसी अप्रूव्ड राहुल आईसीयू को, राहुल आईसीयू का मतलब होता है रिसर्च एसोसिएशन, इंस्टीट्यूट, कॉलेज और यूनिवर्सिटी को, और इनको अगर आपने साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए अगर आपने डोनेशन दिया है तो आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिलेगा। इनको सोशल या स्टेटिस्टिकल रिसर्च के लिए अगर आपने डोनेशन दिया है तो भी आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। या फिर अगर आप किसी आईआईटी या नेशनल लेबोरेटरी को डोनेशन देते हो साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए तो आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। या फिर किसी इंडियन कंपनी को देते हो जो कि अप्रूव्ड होनी चाहिए और वो रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट में एंगेज्ड है और उसको साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए अगर आपने डोनेशन दिया तो आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। तो देखिए डोनेशन किसको देना है, अगर आपने राहुल आईसीयू को दिया, अप्रूव्ड होने चाहिए यहां, और साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए या सोशल स्टैटिस्टिकल रिसर्च के लिए आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। अगर आईआईटी नेशनल लेबोरेटरी को दिया साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा, या किसी इंडियन कंपनी को दिया जो कि रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट में एंगेज्ड है और वो अप्रूव्ड है साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए दिया है तो आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। अब एक और चीज समझना गाइस, यहां पे आपको डिडक्शन तभी मिलता है जब आप डोनेशन दे रहे हो ना वो अप्रूव्ड होना चाहिए। लेकिन सर हमने डोनेशन दिया था उस दिन तो वो अप्रूव्ड था, लेकिन कुछ दिन बाद उसकी अगर अप्रूवल विड्रॉ हो गई तो क्या हमको डिडक्शन मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा। अरे गाइस मिलेगा ना, जिस दिन डोनेशन दिया था उस दिन अप्रूव्ड होना चाहिए। तो अगर जिस दिन डोनेशन दिया था उस दिन अगर वो अप्रूव्ड था ना तो आगे जाके भले उसकी अप्रूवल विड्रॉ हो गई तो भी आपको डिडक्शन है वो डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा। अब एक और चीज समझना, जब आप इन हाउस रिसर्च करते हो तो मैंने बोला कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर पे आपको 100% डिडक्शन मिलेगा, तो क्या इस पे डेप्रीशिएशन मिलेगा। आंसर इज नो बाई गाइस, इस पे डेप्रीशिएशन भाई आपको नहीं मिलेगा। उसके साथ में एक और चीज ध्यान रखना कि अगर मान लो होता क्या है बहुत बार कि इसके जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर जो होते हैं ना अनएब्जॉर्ब वाले करके, ठीक है, साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के, वो वैसे ही ट्रीट होते हैं जैसे अनएब्जॉर्ब डेप्रीशिएशन ट्रीट होता है। तो अभी थोड़ी देर पहले मैंने आपको क्या बताया था, अनएब्सॉर्ब डेप्रीशिएशन है वो आप पता है अनलिमिटेड ईयर्स तक कैरी फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हो एंड गाइस उसको किसी भी हेड से सेट ऑफ कर सकते हो अदर देन सैलरी। तो वैसे ही आपके साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के अनएब्सॉर्ब कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर ट्रीट होंगे। अब एक चीज समझना गाइस, ये जो सेक्शन आपकी 35 साइंटिफिक रिसर्च वाली है ना, इसमें एक चीज ध्यान रखना, अगर आप डिफॉल्ट टैक्सेशन रिजिम लेते हो 115 बीएसी वाला जो बहुत ही प्यारा है, डिफॉल्ट टैक्सेशन रिजिम लेते हो ना, तो उस पर्टिकुलर केस में क्या होगा पता है, ये जो इन हाउस रिसर्च वाला जो डिडक्शन है ना वो तो आपको मिलेगा लेकिन डोनेशन वाली डिडक्शन आपको नहीं मिलेगी। तो जब भी आप 115 बीएससी अगर ले लेते हो तो 115 बीएससी के केस में ये डोनेशन टू द आउटसाइडर था ना, ये डिडक्शन आपको नहीं मिलेगी, बट इन हाउस रिसर्च वाली जो डिडक्शन है वो आपको मिल जाएगी। तो ये जो पार्ट ए वाला डिडक्शन है ना वो तो आपको मिलता रहेगा, भले आप न्यू टैक्सेशन रिजिम लो या ओल्ड टैक्सेशन रिजिम लो, लेकिन ये डोनेशन टू आउटसाइडर वाला जो है ये डिडक्शन आपको नहीं मिलेगा अगर आप न्यू टैक्सेशन रिजिम 115 बीएससी के हिसाब से अपना टैक्स भरते हो। तो चलिए उसके बाद में नेक्स्ट सेक्शन आती है 35D, दैट इज द प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस। प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस किसको बोलते हैं कि जब भी आप कोई बिजनेस स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं,
சில கமெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு வந்து ரிப்ளை பண்ணலான்னு இருக்கான். ஐஸ்வர்யா குட் லக் ப்ளீஸ், தேங்க்யூ ஸோ மச். சுதர்சனம் ஹிந்தி தெரியுமான்னு கேட்குறீங்க. இல்லை ப்ரோ, ஹிந்திலாம் தெரியாது, அதான் சப்டைட்டில் ஹிந்திலாம் தெரியாது, சப்டைட்டில் தான் பாருங்க. ஓகே,
है या फिर अपने बिजनेस को कोई नया यूनिट सेटअप कर रहे हैं या अपने बिजनेस का एक्सटेंशन कर रहे हैं और उस टाइम पे कोई भी खर्चा करते हैं, दैट इज कॉल्ड प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस। ये प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस में कौन कौन से खर्चे आते हैं, जैसे आपने कोई फिजिबिलिटी स्टडी रिपोर्ट बनवाई या प्रोजेक्ट रिपोर्ट बनवाई, मार्केट सर्वे करवाया, इंजीनियरिंग सर्विस ली, एमओए एओए का प्रिंटिंग का ड्राफ्टिंग का खर्चा है, लीगल फीस है, या फिर पब्लिक इश्यू ऑफ द शेयर डिबेंचर
then the receipt will be taxable on 28 loss 7. Any asset used for other business other than specified business, that means after taking deduction, if that
से रिलेटेड कोई खर्चा होता है या एनी अदर एक्सपेंडिचर में बी नोटिफाइड बाय द सीबीडीटी, ये तुम्हारे प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस है। अब एक चीज ध्यान रखना गाइस, प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस का डिडक्शन नॉन रेजिडेंट को नहीं मिलता, ये सिर्फ रेजिडेंट एसएससी होता है ना, उसी को मिलता है। और एक और चीज समझना, प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस का डिडक्शन तभी मिलेगा जब आपने ये खर्चा या तो नया बिजनेस चालू करते टाइम किया है, या पुराने बिजनेस का एक्सटेंशन करते टाइम किया है, या नया यूनिट सेटअप करते टाइम किया है, तो आपको प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस का डिडक्शन मिलेगा। अब एक और चीज समझना, प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस का आपको डिडक्शन तो मिलता है, लेकिन उसमें एक लिमिट होती है। लिमिट क्या होती है पता है, कि जितना आपका एक्चुअल प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस होता है ना, वो तुम्हारे कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट के 5% से ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए। जैसे फॉर एन एग्जांपल, अपना प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस है वो 7 लाख रुपए है और कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट 1 करोड़ है, तो 1 करोड़ का 5% कम्स टू द 5 लाख रुपए, तो आपको मैक्सिमम 5 लाख का प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस अलाउ होगा। सो प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस कैन नॉट बी मोर देन द 5% ऑफ द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट। लेकिन गाइस इसमें ध्यान रखना, अगर कोई इंडियन कंपनी है ना, तो इंडियन कंपनी के केस में ये ऑप्शन है कि कंपनी चाहे तो ये 5% ऑफ कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट या कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड दोनों में से किसी का भी ले सकती है। तो जब दोनों में से किसी का भी ऑप्शन है, तो ऑब्वियसली हम क्या करेंगे, कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट या कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड में से जो ज्यादा रहेगा उसका 5% लेंगे। तो इंडियन कंपनी के केस में ये ऑप्शन है कि 5% ऑफ द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट या कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड दोनों में से किसी का भी ले सकते हैं, और एक्चुअल प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस व्हिचएवर इज लोअर है उतने का डिडक्शन आपको मिल जाएगा। अब एक और चीज समझना, ये प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस का आपको डिडक्शन मिलता है ना, वो एक साथ में नहीं मिलता। इट विल बी अलाउड इन द 5 इक्वल इंस्टॉलमेंट। 5 इक्वल इंस्टॉलमेंट का मतलब होता है कि जैसे मान लो फॉर एन एग्जांपल आपको 5 लाख का प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस अलाउ हुआ, तो 5 लाख एक साथ में आप पीएनडल के डेबिट में नहीं डाल सकते। 1 लाख 1 लाख 1 लाख 1 लाख 1 लाख ऐसा करके 5 ईयर में आप जो है वो पीएनडल के डेबिट में प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस है वो डाल सकते हैं। अब एक और चीज समझना सर, कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट का मतलब क्या होता है, तो कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट का मतलब कि जो नया बिजनेस आपने चालू किया या जो नया एक्सटेंशन किया या नया यूनिट सेटअप किया, उसके लिए फिक्स असेट में कितना इन्वेस्ट किया। तो जो फिक्स असेट में जितना इन्वेस्ट करोगे, जो फिक्स असेट का बैलेंस रहेगा एज ऑन द 31st मार्च और एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर, फिक्स असेट में जितना इन्वेस्ट हुआ नए बिजनेस के लिए, एक्सटेंशन के लिए, नया यूनिट सेटअप किया, उसके लिए जितना फिक्स असेट में इन्वेस्ट होता है ना, उसको बोला जाता है कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट। और कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड किसको बोलते हैं पता है, कि नए बिजनेस के लिए या एक्सटेंशन के लिए या नया यूनिट सेटअप करने के लिए आपका शेयर कैपिटल प्लस डिबेंचर प्लस लॉन्ग टर्म बोरोइंग, तो शेयर कैपिटल प्लस डिबेंचर प्लस लॉन्ग टर्म बोरोइंग है, इन तीनों की टोटल कर दो करके, ठीक है, वो तुम्हारा कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड हो जाएगा। यहां पे एक और चीज ध्यान रखना, आपको रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस नहीं लेना है। रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस जिसमें आपका जनरल रिजर्व है या सिक्योरिटी प्रीमियम रिजर्व है, वो आपको नहीं लेना, क्योंकि कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड का मतलब शेयर कैपिटल प्लस डिबेंचर प्लस लॉन्ग टर्म बोरोइंग है, वो ही आपको लेना पड़ेगा। अब एक और चीज समझना, अगर आप प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस करते हो ना, तो उस केस में आपको उस साल में क्या करना पड़ेगा, आपको ऑडिट करानी पड़ेगी, और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट अपना ऑडिट रिपोर्ट है वो सबमिट करेगा एटलीस्ट 1 मंथ बिफोर द ड्यू डेट ऑफ रिटर्न फाइलिंग। तो रिटर्न फाइलिंग का ड्यू डेट अगर 31 अक्टूबर को आता है, तो उस पर्टिकुलर केस में ऑडिट होनी चाहिए 30 सितंबर तक। चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट है वो अपनी ऑडिट करेगा और ऑडिट रिपोर्ट सबमिट करेगा। अब यहां पे एक और चीज समझना, कंपनी और कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी की ऐसे भी ऑडिट होती है, तो इस पर्टिकुलर केस में उनको एक्सेप्शन में डाल रखा है, क्योंकि उनकी ऐसे भी ऑडिट
in order to do that research, I may incur either revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If I am incurring revenue expenditure, as per Income Tax Act, I am entitled to claim deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 1. And capital expenditure under 35 subsection 1 clause 4. Sir, revenue expenditure, for example, salary excluding perquisites and material, 100% deduction you are entitled to claim. So what the act is saying, that if you are incurring salary expenditure, perquisites is not allowed. If you are incurring raw material expenditure, that is allowed. Other than salary, which is human resources, other than raw material, any other revenue expenditure, no deduction will be allowed in section 35. But before commencement of the business, I am, sir, not only incurring the what expenditure, revenue expenditure, I am incurring the analyze the capital expenditure. Are you paying any land for scientific research? No deduction will be allowed, because for land, even we are not providing depreciation under section 32. Am I right, sir? Sir, are you constructing building for research purpose? Yes, 100% of the deduction can be claimed as a deduction. And for others, are you purchasing any plant and machinery? 100% of the amount can be claimed as a deduction. Sir, but you said that, sir, before you start the business, you can incur expenditure for the purpose of scientific research. If I am incurring expenditure 100 years before, will you allow it as a deduction? No, maximum 3 years back will be allowed as a deduction. Incurred within 3 years immediately preceding the commencement of the business. Once a business has started after the research, then before research, you don't know whether the research will be successful or not. But after commencement of the business, you can say that, sir, whether the business you are going to set up as company or other than company, then it will not be expenditure based, then it will be assessee based. That's why we are classifying into company and other than company. Comfortable? If the assessee has started as a company, for company 35 subsection 2 AB separate provisions are there, but now every provisions are one and the same. Every section is giving only 100% reduction. But earlier, for company 150 or 200% weighted reduction was there. That's why separate section came into existence. Are you agree with me? You have to check that whether the expenditure is a revenue expenditure or If it is revenue expenditure, 100% will be allowed as deduction under section 35 subsection 2AB. Whereas if it is capital expenditure, you have to analyze whether it is land, building, or others. Sir, as per, very important point for exam, as per 35 subsection 2AB, sir, land and building are not allowed as deduction. But building is allowed as deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 4. Are you able to appreciate the difference? But other capital expenditure like plant and machinery will be allowed as deduction under 35 subsection 2AB. 100% can be claimed as a deduction. With regard to other assessee, my dear lovable students, that means other than company, for them 35 subsection 2AB provisions will not be applicable. You have to check that whether it is revenue expenditure or if it is revenue expenditure 35 subsection 1 clause 1, 100% deduction will be applicable. If it is capital expenditure, you have to analyze that whether it is land, building, or others. Land means no deduction, building means 100% deduction, and others means 100% deduction. Are you able to appreciate, sir? Simple. I'm consolidating, sir. Section 35 is expenditure on what research, scientific research, classified into two categories: in-house research and contribution to outsiders. In-house research, I can incur that expenditure either before commencement of business, or if I'm incurring before commencement of business, I've not at all started the business, so I don't know whether the business is company or other than company. So I will analyze only the expenditure, whether the expenditure is revenue expenditure, or if the expenditure is revenue expenditure, check salary, raw material, fully allowed. Other than salary, raw material, not allowed. That's it. Capital expenditure, land, building, or others. Land, no deduction. Building, 100% deduction. Others, 100% deduction. That's it. But with regard to after commencement of business, you have started the business, analyze the assessee, whether the assessee is a company or other than company. If the assessee is a company, they also incur revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If they incur revenue expenditure, 100%. Capital expenditure, analyze land, building, or others. Land not allowed, building not allowed as per 35 subsection 2AB, but allowed as per 35 subsection 1 clause 4. And others, 100% allowed as per 35 subsection 2AB. With regard to other assessee, my dear lovable students, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Revenue expenditure, 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 1. Capital expenditure, land, building, others. Land, no deduction. Building, 100% deduction. And others also 100% deduction. This is where we are standing. Now, contribution to outsiders. First point you should take care is this is allowed only under the VAT tax regime. If you are traveling through the default tax regime, there is no concept of contribution to outsiders at all. So this may be tested in examination as a question. If you are contributing to an approved research association or ICU, that is institute or college or university, my dear lovable students, if it is scientific research, 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 2. That is, you are contributing to an approved research association or institute or college or university for scientific research, 100% will be the deduction. For social and statistical research, 100% will be the deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 3. So if you are contributing to IIT, National Laboratory or University for scientific research, 100% deduction under 35 subsection 2AA. And to approved Indian company engaged in research and development, that means you are contributing to an Indian company. Sir, for the purpose of scientific research, 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 2A. That means I can contribute to approved research association or institute, college or university. For the purpose of scientific research means 100% deduction. Social or statistical research means 100% deduction. Section is changing. Scientific research means 35 subsection 1 clause. Social or statistical research means 35 subsection 1 clause. IIT, National Laboratory, University. Scientific research means 100% deduction under section 35 subsection 2A. Whereas approved Indian company engaged in research and development, scientific research means 100% deduction under 35 subsection 1 clause 2A. Comfortable, sir. So in order to enjoy the contribution to outsiders, you should mandatorily travel through the optional tax regime and not the default tax regime. This is a one line summary before the day of examination, according to me. If you see the start, entire thing should come into your brain. Section 35 classified into three categories. Yes, 3 should be classified into 3. That's why 35 subsection 1, 35 subsection 2A, 35 subsection 2AB, and 35 1 again classified into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because 35. So 3 has to be classified into 3 and again 5. What is 35 subsection 1 clause 1? Revenue expenditure. Come on to the last. 35 subsection 1 clause 4, capital expenditure. 35 subsection 1 clause 2, scientific research. 35 subsection 1 clause 2A, scientific research to approved Indian company. 35 subsection 1 clause 3, social and statistical research. 35 subsection 1 clause 4, capital expenditure. To 35 2A, if you are contributing to IIT, National Laboratory or 35 subsection 2AB is what company. This 35 subsection 1 clause 2, clause 2A, clause 3 and clause 2AA will be available only if you are traveling through the optional tax regime and will not be applicable if you are traveling through the. Are you agree with me? Sir, one small highlight is that, man. Sir, you are purchasing a plant and machinery, for example, for 10 lakh for the purpose of scientific research. As we all know that if you are incurring a capital expenditure for the scientific research, 100% of the capital expenditure can be claimed as a deduction. That means in the profit and loss account, instead of traveling through section 32 route, you are traveling through section 35 route. Am I right, sir? You will be debiting the cost of asset 10 lakh in one shot because 100% of the expenditure can be claimed as a deduction. After the scientific research is over, what you are doing, you know, you are selling that asset for 8 lakh. You are selling that asset for. Then what PGBP is asking that when you are claiming deduction, you claim it under the PGBP. But if you are selling, if you tax this 8 lakh under the capital gain, that will be anyayam. Are you agree with me? That's what by sale of asset under 41 subsection 3, we are having another deemed section. That is how we are having 41 subsection 2, what charge? Balancing charge. The same way, sir, we are having 41 subsection 3 deemed profit lead to what? PGBP. So one line summary of the entire discussion. Sir, have you purchased any asset for scientific research? Yes, sir. And you are dashed asset, selling of the asset. So that asset has been sold after being put to use for the other business. That means after the scientific research is over, you brought that asset to the normal business. Then that should be included in the block. If it has to be included in the block, provisions of 43 subsection 6 will be applicable. Correct? And section 50 shall apply lead to what gain? Capital gain in future. Are you able to connect? No, sir. I have not introduced that to the normal business, sir. I sold immediately after the scientific research is over. That is sold without being used for other purpose. Then 41 subsection 3 will be applicable. It will lead to deemed profit under the head 41 subsection 3. Can I proceed, sir? These are the most important things, my dear lovable students. In that, in ICAI question number 2 is that mandatory go through question number 2 before your examination because that question is dealing with the various default tax regime and the optional tax regime computation. And coming to section 35 AD, which is specified business. Can I proceed, sir? These are the most important things, my dear lovable students. In that, in ICAI question number 2 is that Mandatorily go through question number 2 before your examination, because that question is dealing with the various default tax regime and the optional tax regime computation. And coming to section 3580, which is specified business, my dear lovable students, what the government is saying that if you are having the guts, if you are having the dill, if you are having the dhairyam, you start 14 specified business, because this business general people can't start. You will be incurring a lot of capital expenditure. Those capital expenditure don't travel to section 32 route. You can travel to section 3580 route, and we are ready to provide you 100% of the deduction, my dear lovable students. And the section, sir, in case of individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, and AJP, sir, in order to claim deduction under section 3580, first of all, you should come out of the default tax regime. First of all, you should travel only through the, and that too, you should opt the section 3580. If you are traveling through the, sir, optional tax regime, you have to say that I don't want the 32 route, I want 3580 route, then only you can travel to 3580 route. So what is this section is all about? What is this package is all about? This package is simple. Assessee can claim 100% deduction on the what expenditure? Capital expenditure. Under section 3580 instead of 32, depreciation. Sir, if he undertake the below specified business. So what is the game? It's a game between two people. Either game vis-a-vis section 32 depreciation normal route, or section 35 or 3580 route. We are having two alternate route. Or either you can travel to 32 route or 35 or 35. My dear lovable students, sir, these are the 14 specified business. You start with a cold chain facility. What facility? Warehousing facility for agricultural produce. Warehousing facility for sugar. Warehousing facility for and honey and bee bags. These are the 14 specified business. Or you start housing project by a part and parcel of